Chapter 13:17. Everyone opened the formations around Li Qiuyu's bed layer by layer, because they were afraid that Gu Qingshan might have hidden something. The entire process was incredibly slow. Li Qiuyu was only awakened at the very end. When she found out that she was knocked unconscious by Gu Qingshan, she was furious. After Li Chundao explained further, she found out that the other party's target wasn't her, but rather Li Sanlang. She became even more furious. Bro, he wasn't even moved by a beauty like me. Is he crazy? Li Qiuyu angrily asked. Li Chundao helplessly replied, Don't think too much about it. He just wanted to use Qiushan's spirit link ability. It has nothing to do with your looks. All right, no need to say anything else from now on. Chundao will move in with Qiuyu and Qiushan, just in case that Gu Qingshan comes to harass us again, Shan Hai Qixia said. Understood, Li Chundao replied. At this point, a deep purple piece of bone suddenly descended from above, hovering in front of Shan Hai Qixia. She received the piece of bone and carefully observed it. Then her expression changed. Everyone tensed up as they saw this. Dean, are you all right? Banishing Sword Saint Wang Shun asked. Shan Hai Qixia's gaze swept through everyone. Aside from the 13-year-old Li Qiushan, everyone here was a mainstay of the school. Shan Hai Qixia then said, The corpse has been mutated. We need to gather more people to prevent those people from taking the secret for themselves. Everyone trembled. The corpse. What corpse? It must be that wraith. That was the only original Samsara monster corpse that had been discovered so far. It was related to the secret of the entire Samsara. Gu Qingshan also couldn't control her expression. This is too big of a deal. No matter what, we definitely can't let the Wraith Realm obtain any benefits from this. Otherwise, the 900 million world layers would be in danger. But how am I supposed to escape now? My current identity is completely clean, and I've managed to endure all sorts of investigations without much difficulty. Even Shan Hai Qixia's words just now weren't hidden from me, because she felt that a 13-year-old child wouldn't be able to understand the meaning of those words without knowing anything. In fact, if Gu Qingshan hadn't exchanged information with her before, she wouldn't have been able to guess anything from this sentence. While Gu Qingshan was quickly deducing in her mind, Shan Hai Qixia ordered, Li Chundao and Wang Shun, the two of you will protect the school. Zhang Jiubai, Siyu Hai, the two of you will come with me to the Great Tomb. Yes, everyone answered. Shan Hai Qixia didn't say anything else and had already taken to the sky. Extinguishing saintly hands, Zhang Jiubai, an old man embracing bones, Su Yuhai followed closely behind her. Their figures flashed a few times in the air before completely disappearing. Banishing Sword God Wang Shun withdrew his gaze and said, You settle down your brother and sister. I'll be on guard tonight. You'll take over tomorrow. Li Chundao nodded. Very well, we'll take turns. If you see Gu Qingshan coming again, immediately sound the alarm. Yes. Wang Shun turned around and left. As he walked, he summoned the guards and began to rearrange the security of the entire sect. From afar, he could be heard saying, Listen up, from now on. Increase the number of guards by 3 times until the sect master and the others return. Li Chundao withdrew his gaze, then told Li Qiuyu and Li Qiushan, All right, from now on, I'll live and eat with you. I'll protect you, Gu Qingshan hesitantly asked. But how are we going to live here? The brother and sister looked towards the direction he was pointing, only to see that Li Qiuyu's cave had been cut into rubble. This was a result of Li Chundao's slash when he rushed out earlier. Bro, pay for my house first, Li Qiuyu muttered. Li Chundao swung his hand and said, I'll find a few bone masters to repair it. It'll be done very quickly. The next day, Gu Qingshan went to school, as usual. Li Chundao had a shift during the day, so he didn't follow him. On the other hand, when Banishing Sword God Wang Shun took over Li Chundao's shift, he volunteered to protect Gu Qingshan. You're going to protect him? Isn't this the mission the sect master gave me? Li Chundao asked in confusion. Wang Shun casually replied, Because I'll have a chance to run into that Gu Qingshan again. I let him escape last time, so I won't test him this time. I'll do everything I can to keep him here. He stroked Gu Qingshan's head, then gently told him, "Li San Lang, don't worry, I'll protect you well then." "Oh, thank you, big brother Wang." Gu Qingshan had a complicated expression on her face. For a child to show such an expression, others would think that he was a bit moved. Hearing that, Li Chundao also felt that it made sense, so he handed Gu Qingshan over to Wang Shun and went to take over his shift. And then, on the way to school, Wang Shun followed Gu Qingshan while cautiously paying attention to their surroundings. As they entered the study lodge, Gu Qingshan saw a few other students walking towards them and spoke up. "Big brother Wang, it's best if you don't enter our class. Otherwise, if a big shot like you stays in the study lodge, the other students won't be able to listen to anything you say." Wang Shun raised his eyebrows and was about to say something, but the other children had already rushed forward. "Banishing Sword Saints, sir. Oh my God, it's the Sword Saint himself. Whoa, am I seeing things? Why did he come to the study lodge with Li Qiushan?" Wang Shun's gaze passed through the children, noticing that more and more young people were gathering behind them. His lips twitched, but he swallowed back what he was about to say. Finally, when the young people began their class, he stood at the top of the study lodge's tallest building, using his presence to observe the entire study lodge, silently observing the slightest movement. Morning Miscellaneous Studies class. This class was a lecture on the customs of various worlds, as well as encyclopedic knowledge. Everything was normal. Afternoon. Then came the combat class. Gu Qingshan once again entered the destroyed world. Oh, Gu Qingshan sighed and fell into thought. That ancient wraith's corpse had already mutated, so the tomb of myriad beasts and the wraith realm must have gathered all of their experts to closely observe the situation. But I can't go there right now. If nothing unexpected happens from now on, Banishing Sword Saint Wang Shun will be there during the day, and Blade Venerate Li Chundao will be there at night. So it'll be very difficult for me to escape from their line of sight and do whatever I want to do. This destroyed world is the only place where I can be alone. Although Wang Shun didn't follow me in this time, it's hard to say if he would react and ask to come in to protect me next time. In other words, this trip might very well be the last chance for me to be alone. If I want to do anything, I'll have to seize this final chance, otherwise I'll have no choice but to give up this identity. War God Yui, Gu Qingshan called out. "I'm here," the War God Yui replied. Gu Qingshan paused for a while, then asked, "Have you checked this inheritance that I obtained? Is there something wrong with it?" "Very rarely," the War God Yui asked in return. "What are you suspecting?" Gu Qingshan replied, "When I entered the Great Tomb as Night Cruiser, the Void Monsters all wanted to give me the inheritance, so I assumed that what they wanted was to survive, not find an inheritor. Otherwise, the Void Gloom Mother wouldn't have cursed me to death as soon as I refused. Furthermore, ever since I entered this world, I haven't actually come into contact with anything of this world. But after the Soul Shrieker saw me, it became so afraid that it would rather merge with Primal Chaos." The War God Ui didn't respond for a while. Gu Qingshan continued. "Li Qiuyu said that when I performed spirit linking, I glanced at her. In truth, as a cultivator, at my level, I can already fully control my own body. Never mind a glance. I can even sense the change of a single strand of hair on a person's body. Xian, 1 Chinese. Com omega 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 omega. If what she said wasn't a lie, then the one who looked at her definitely wasn't me." This sounded a bit frightening, but the War God Ui still didn't answer. Gu Qingshan continued. "Combining the above points, I believe that there's something wrong with the inheritance I obtained. Haven't you noticed?" A short moment later, Gu Qingshan saw 1,000 soul points being deducted from her soul points. Following that, the War God Ui explained, "An inheritance is something like this. It is a unique technique similar to an initiation. By combining past knowledge, skills, and experiences, it is completely infused into the inheritor's thoughts. See? Because an inheritance is only an inheritance, the one who ultimately decides whether or not to learn it, practice it, or use it is the inheritor. Because of that, the War God Ui, as well as all of order and chaos, as well as everything else, would only have a single judgment regarding an inheritance, permission granted. In summary, if an issue occurs with the inheritance, the system has the determination confidence, and ability to directly erase the inheritance from your thoughts. See. Gu Shan silently listened, then looked up and thought for a while. I'm wondering, if there's such an inheritance that isn't harmful to me in the first place, so I can pass through it. However, after I fully comprehend the inheritance, what will happen? The war god UI replied. If the triggered event is harmful to you, the system will directly erase the corresponding inheritance. Gu Shan shook her head. No, the triggered event won't harm me in the first place, but it will harm me. That's a bit of a mouthful. He explained further, for example, a certain spirit linking summoning technique. This is a summoning technique that isn't harmful to me, so you've allowed it to exist, correct? The system allows spirit linking summoning, the war god UI replied. Gu Shan's gaze became solemn and continued. But neither you nor I know that the entity that we summon might replace me from my fate. It will be saved, while I will be placed into its fate, which will surely be a fate of incomparable misery, eternal suffering, and hopeless despair. The soul shrieker isn't even afraid of fusing with primal chaos, but doesn't dare to fight me. So it must be afraid of something, no matter how much I think about it. Something even more terrifying than disappearing forever should be something like this. Chapter 1318. At this point, Gu Shan suddenly recalled something. When I was in the Eastern Desolate Grotto, a wandering specter once appeared in my spirit sense in the school of Fei Yu's conference room. At the time, I thought that it was a weapon of mass destruction from the school of Fei Yu, as it was powerful enough to kill me right away. But now, if my conjecture is correct, the school of Fei Yu's patriarch should no longer be his original self as soon as he finished. Even Gu Shan himself was shocked. Inheritance. The samsara inheritance. In the age of the apocalypse, this was such a tempting thing. Spirit-linked martial artists, weapon users, bone masters. All of them relied on their inheritance to resist the apocalypse. I really wonder how many people in the tomb of myriad beasts have been replaced. The war god UI fell into a long silence. After a while, the war god UI spoke. An inheritance is similar to a blessing. According to the existing rules, I would not refuse it right away. Following your conjecture, the system has modified the corresponding rules from now on. Any inheritance that wishes to be carried into your body must be approved by you. Otherwise, it will not be accepted. Gu Shan nodded. A few moments later, lines of glowing text appeared on the war god UI. Frowny face, you've successfully resonated and become a spirit-linked martial artist. If you spend 10,000 soul points, the system will erase this inheritance from your body. Would you like to spend soul points to complete this erasure? As Gu Shan was about to agree, he opened his mouth but stopped without saying anything. Wait a minute. His gaze flickered as he silently paced around the destroyed world of darkness. Time slowly passed. The lines of glowing text were still hovering in front of Gu Shan, but he still hadn't given the order. Erasing an inheritance isn't a hard thing to do. Why haven't you agreed? The war god UI asked. Gu Shan replied, everything before was only my conjecture. I don't have any concrete evidence to prove it. Safety first, the war god UI replied. Think about it again. Gu Shan fell into thought again. He leapt onto a metal pillar in the middle of the ruins, observing the endless destruction with a complicated expression. What are you hesitating for? You should understand. If your conjecture is correct, then the longer you wait, the closer you are to danger, the war god UI replied. Gu Shan said in a low voice, speculations can never be taken seriously. I need to see the truth with my own eyes. Besides, if that snake-body guy is after me, I have to do something. Otherwise, I'll leave the impression that I'm a pushover. The war god UI replied. The system can help you erase its inheritance. Not enough. Gu Shan spat out 2 words. He waved his hand lightly. 2 long swords appeared behind him. I remember you just explained that the inheritance is a special technique that is similar to an empowerment. Correct. The war god UI confirmed. Gu Shan pondered and slowly replied, if I use Night Cruiser, I'll definitely turn into a clone and be sent away. Even if Shanu stays here, she might not be able to defeat it. Gu Shan felt an inexplicable palpitation in her heart when she recalled the existence with a snake's body and a human head. Just by looking at me, I was completely frozen in place. How am I supposed to fight against such terrifying power? Gu Shan tilted her head and thought for a bit, then muttered, "Then, I can't give it a chance to attack." He held the Six Paths Great Mountain Sword in one hand and the Earth Sword in the other, then abruptly stabbed himself in the chest. Gongzi, Gu Shan. The sword spirits of the two swords called out in shock. Blood was already pouring out. Gu Shan scowled, endured the pain, and said, "Don't worry, as long as you don't use your full strength, a cultivator like me won't die so quickly." "What exactly are you doing?" the Earth Sword asked in a low voice. The Chowing sword appeared from the void of space, hurriedly circling around Gu Shan while letting out a fearful woo-woo-woo sound. "I'm guessing that when I use Night Cruiser to create a clone, something else will come out and enter my main body after I fall asleep and leave as a clone. Don't move, just stay in my chest, Shenu. Stop all spells. Earth Sword, I'll allow you to use all of my soul points. Both of you have already stabbed me in the chest. The other party won't be able to resist at all." Gu Shan endured the pain, took a deep breath, and said, "If something tries to take control of my body, kill it." The three swords silently listened, then understood what he meant. Gu Shan suddenly chuckled, then continued, "You have to be sure of your target, especially the Earth Sword. Don't use Earth's Choice on me. You have to be sure of your timing. As soon as it tries to enter my body, you'll definitely be able to notice it." "If that's the case, it'll be very risky," the Earth Sword said in a low voice. "Just kill it," Gu Shan said without hesitation. Blood continued to flow. Shanu's sobbing could be heard from the sword. "Gongzi, I'm afraid that I'll accidentally hurt you. It's fine. After I fall asleep, my body won't be able to use any spells. You just need to stab the thing that suddenly infiltrated my body with all your strength. I remember that you've cut off all spells. It won't be able to stop you." He smiled encouragingly, then said, "You're my swords, I trust you." Hearing that, the two swords understood that he had made up his mind, so they didn't say anything else and silently prepared themselves. Gu Shan closed his eyes and began to think of a way to activate Night Cruiser. Although he felt intense pain from his chest, cultivators were able to enter a meditative state even under the most extreme of circumstances. So how could they control their bodies to enter a sleeping state? Gu Shan had already gotten used to using Night Cruiser, so as soon as he felt like he was half asleep, he immediately activated this clone technique. Ho! His consciousness brought the Chao-yin sword through countless obstacles and once again flew towards the distant sky. He controlled his consciousness to no longer fall to the ground, but instead took to the air and flew deeper into the sky. Through the darkness of the night sky, he continued upwards and upwards. The darkness faded, revealing the clear blue sky. Through the ocean, into the clouds, he found the entrance to a cave among the inverted mountain peaks and silently went in. From the looks of it, these mountain peaks were most likely from the surface, the underground part of the Great Tomb. The two swords were waiting for the monster to fall into their trap. Taking advantage of this time, Gu Shan used Night Cruiser one last time to sneak into the Great Tomb and search for the Wraith's corpse. The deeper he went, the more people there were. A sea of people. Gu Shan could now recognize who was a bone master, who was a spirit-linked martial artist, and who was a weapon wielder. He followed the flow of people and flew towards a certain direction. A few moments later, he saw a large expanse of glowing red rocks, and further in was a boundless sea of lava. Everyone was surrounding the sea of lava. Something was bobbing up and down inside. That's the Wraith's corpse? While Gu Shan was thinking that, he suddenly felt something in his heart. He only felt a strong pulling force coming from behind him, pulling him back in an instant. The wind howled by his ears. His speed had reached its peak, passing through the cave, the mountains, the sky, the ocean, and returned to the dark, destroyed world in almost the blink of an eye. He opened his eyes. He spat up some blood. "Gongzi, I've succeeded." This was Shanu's voice. "Hurry and treat your wounds." The Earth Sword's voice also followed. Gu Shan stood up. He hadn't even finished manifesting his clone. When he looked down, the two swords were still stabbed in his chest. The intense pain was almost unbearable. His body became extremely weak. But something else had suddenly appeared in this world of darkness. Gu Qingshan looked up. In front of him, a skeleton several hundred meters long laid on the ground without any signs of life. It was the human-headed snake. Lines of glowing text quickly appeared on the war god UI. Frowny face, your conjecture was correct. All of your soul points have been used to activate Earth's choice. Furthermore, the 100 million soul points of the UI had hidden away had also been used up. You used the method of leaving your sword behind to make it impossible for the other party to block this attack. You've performed an impossible kill. This kill is equivalent to a dust worm killing a dragon. You've killed a spirit link monster. Samsara Chief, War Shaman. Specific name and identity unknown. To be able to kill this monster, you've surpassed all definitions and restraints of strength in this world. The amount of soul points obtained this time was too great. The UI is still calculating. Please wait a moment. Mobile version of the fastest updated website. Chapter 1319. Seeing that the war god UI was calculating the soul points, Gu Qingshan silently waited for a while. It didn't take too long. Only a few minutes later, the result was out. A line of glowing text appeared on the war god UI, frowny face during this battle. You acted as a clone and went to another location. The realm had paid a heavy price to stay where your main body was, and with great effort and indomitable spirit, we displayed a powerful will worthy of the title of War God. In the end, we used up 100 million soul points stored in our body to support the twin swords that you had set up earlier to complete this kill. Reading up to this point, Gu Qingshan had a bad feeling. Lines of glowing text continued to appear below frowny face to replenish the system's consumption, maintain the system's normal operations, as well as supervise the system's owner, Gu Qingshan, to be more thrifty and not wasteful. The system has finally decided. You've obtained a total of 100 million soul points. Gu Qingshan instinctively sighed in relief. Being able to obtain 100 million soul points would at least be a good foundation for future battles. At the very next moment, he realized that something wasn't right. Oi, I know you need soul points to operate, but we've already spent around 200 million soul points in total. Isn't 100 million a bit too little? Gu Qingshan complained. The war god UI replied. During this battle, the system had put in a lot of effort. Stop. Gu Qingshan cut it off. You put in a lot of effort, but I still had a sword stabbed through my chest. Furthermore, you've already mentioned that I'm an insect that killed a dragon. If it was such a kill that surpassed its level, the monster itself must have contained more than 100 million soul points. No, it must have been at least 200 million. The war god UI replied. 200 million? You're underestimating this. That's true. It should be around 200 million. Gu Qingshan's eyelids twitched. Before he could react, his remaining soul points had already been deducted by 2,000. Just now, I answered 2 of Gu Qingshan's questions, so this is my consultation fee. Gu Qingshan angrily said. Aren't you looking down on me a bit with that reaction of yours? A line of glowing text appeared on the war god UI. I've always been in your eyes. The line of words flashed. Another 1,000 soul points were gone. Gu Qingshan still had 999,997,000 points. He asked again. Even less. Sigh. Gu Qingshan opened her mouth for a long time and finally let out a sigh. All right. Just now, it had offered 100 million soul points, so let's have some fun. Next time, I'll find another monster that needs its soul power to kill. Gu Qingshan silently calculated in her mind. He didn't answer, but the war god UI asked, The battle is over. Do you have any more questions? Gu Qingshan quickly shook her head and then nodded. He suddenly remembered something. Earth Sword, I'm here. When you used Earth's choice to slay that monster, did you also completely destroy its soul? Gu Qingshan asked. The Earth Sword replied. It was thanks to Shanu breaking all of its techniques that I was able to directly kill it. I'm certain that I had completely destroyed its soul. Gu Qingshan glanced at the several hundred meters of white bones in front of her. A gust of wind blew past. All the bones were turned to dust, scattered by the wind, and disappeared without a trace. Gu Qingshan nodded. Since the Earth Sword and Six Paths Great Mountain Sword did such a good job, I can confirm my next conjecture. War God Ui, this isn't a question, it's time for you to show me the inheritance I obtained, he continued. After I killed this chief shaman of the Samsara, its inheritance should no longer be able to allow it to switch bodies. So I want you to check if there are any changes to the inheritance. The war god Ui was blank. 1 breath. 2 breaths. All of a sudden, lines of glowing text appeared in front of Gu Qingshan's eyes, frowny face, currently reviewing the secret inheritance. Unknown spirit-linked fist technique. Corresponding changes have been discovered. The spirit-linked fist technique you obtained had been converted from unique technique into fist technique knowledge, stored in your thoughts. See. Corresponding changes are currently being described. Please wait a moment. Gu Qingshan asked, is fist technique knowledge still related to the technique? The war god Ui replied, do not worry, the knowledge is clean. A few moments later, lines of glowing text appeared on the war god Ui. The inheritance that was concealed by spirit linking, like a precious treasure buried in the sand. After the shaman of the war god was completely eliminated, it was now displaying its dazzling brilliance. To complete this task, the system had expended a great deal of effort. With a fearless spirit, we delved deeper into the inheritance layer by layer, searching for the true inheritance amidst all sorts of traps, discarding the false and preserving the true, painstakingly organizing, summarizing, analyzing, and repeatedly verifying. Gu Qingshan was speechless. It's only been a few seconds since I reminded you. Why do you sound like you've been doing hard labor for hundreds of years? He glanced past the chattering praises of himself and looked at the notifications at the back. You've obtained Samsara mystery knowledge. Ethereal, Samsara mystery fist technique. Understood immediately upon learning, but its power requires the corresponding Samsara deity authority to exert the corresponding power. Gu Qingshan asked, what is a Samsara deity authority? What is the corresponding power? The war god Ui directly deducted 1,000 soul points and replied, if you perform this mystery fist technique as the Huang Quan Devil King, you will be able to trigger the power of the Samsara and unleash the power of the Huang Quan Devil King. If you were another Samsara deity, you would be able to use this technique and borrow the power of the Samsara to unleash the corresponding power of your deity authority. Gu Qingshan was surprised and couldn't help but ask, if that's the case, doesn't that mean anyone can use this fist technique, and the effects would be different as well? Indeed, but the prerequisite is that the one performing the fist technique must be a Samsara deity. Gu Qingshan carefully thought about it, but couldn't think that he had ever heard of such a fist technique before. He praised, as expected, a mystic-type fist technique, dong dong dong. At this point, the sound of knocking came. From the void of darkness, a door opened. The practical combat class teacher and banishing sword Saint Wang Shun were both standing at the door. Class is over, Li Sanlang, the practical combat class teacher said. Ah, yes. Gu Qingshan appeared to be thinking about something, hurriedly answered, and quickly walked towards the two of them. He appeared to be very relaxed, but his swords were all tensed up. Be careful, Gongzi. They might have already been replaced, Shanu hurriedly said. That's right, prepare to fight at any moment, the Earth Sword also said. Gu Qingshan maintained a faint smile on his face and silently replied in his mind. It's fine. Wang Shun stared closely at Gu Qingshan and muttered, why do I have a bad feeling about this? He grabbed his swords. Gu Qingshan paused, then silently sent her voice to the 3 swords. Relax, don't let him sense it. There's no need to worry about this. Why not? We've already found out that those monsters are replacing the people of this world. So they might have already found out about what happened just now, the Earth Sword said. Gu Qingshan explained, when I performed Night Cruiser in front of Shan Hai Chi Xia and the others, none of them recognized this cloning technique. Furthermore, when I performed Inch Desolation, I noticed that it was only after I performed this punch that they saw how powerful it was that Shan Hai Chi Xia decided to have Li Qiuyu take care of me. Clearly, they don't know who this punch came from. This means that, even within the Great Tomb, these monsters don't fully understand each other. After all, The samsara is so vast that the various apocalypses have separated these monsters. If it was anyone else, they wouldn't take the risk of going through the apocalypses to investigate the environment of others and understand each other. I'm guessing that they would only be able to contact each other after completing the replacement. In other words, they only know that the entity I'm linking to is very powerful, but they wouldn't know that I've already killed him. After all, how could a young teenager possibly go against such a terrifying entity? That's why I'm safe. While sending his voice, he walked towards the practical combat class teacher and banishing sword saint Wang Shun. Come, big brother Wang, let's go home and eat. Gu Qingshan smiled and said. Wang Shun's eyebrows twitched a bit, then asked, Do you always cook at home? That's right. Li Qiuyu only eats ready-made food, Gu Qingshan replied. They closed the door to the dark world and headed back together. Nothing happened on the way. Mobile version of the fastest updated website. Chapter 1320. I'm back. Gu Qingshan called out. Quickly wash your hands and go to the kitchen to cook, Li Qiuyu told her. Why are you cooking instead of washing your hands? Gu Qingshan complained. Li Qiuyu glanced at him and casually said, Do you dare to eat what I cook? Gu Qingshan obediently washed his hands and went to the kitchen to cook. Zhao Qiong didn't come today. The one helping her was banishing sword saint, Wang Shun. Gu Qingshan appeared shocked, as if everything he knew had been flipped upside down. Big brother Wang, I don't need a big shot like you to cook. He hurriedly waved his hand dismissively. It's fine, I always cook by myself at home. While saying so, Wang Shun put on his apron and began to wash the vegetables. His movements were swift and skillful. One look, and one could tell that he was an experienced person. A sword saint who knows how to cook. I can't help but feel that something isn't right no matter how I think about it, Gu Qingshan muttered. Think about yourself. The three swords in his thoughts spoke at the same time. Gu Qingshan's thoughts turned a bit. In truth, he didn't actually say it out loud. If it was a sword cultivator who knew how to cook, then that would be acceptable. But if there was a big shot who suffered from the destruction of the apocalypse during the broken samsara, then managed to escape by taking over someone else's body, then sat next to me to wash vegetables, Gu Qingshan felt that something wasn't right. Is Wang Shun still himself? All right, the vegetables have been washed and cleaned. I heard that your cooking skills are quite good, so I won't be cooking today. Wang Shun washed his hands, crossed his arms, and stood on one side, ready to observe Gu Qingshan cook. Gu Qingshan didn't think too much about it, focused his mind, and prepared a table full of homemade dishes. After all, Li Chundao would be returning at noon. Together with Wang Shun and Gu Qingshan, the three men needed to eat something solid. Qiu Shan, your meat dish was quite good, but how exactly did you make the sauce? Wang Shun watched for a while and asked. Gu Qingshan froze. This fellow had stayed behind to violate the law, so it turned out that he was here to steal his skills. As long as the meat in his dish was cleaned and the heat was sufficient, it would be fine. The real essence was in the sauce. With the addition of the sauce, this plate of cooked meat had a soul. If Brother Wang likes it, I'll write you the recipe after dinner. Gu Qingshan said. Okay, since you practice boxing, I will give you a pair of boxing gloves later, Wang Jin said with a faint smile. Gu Qingshan lowered her head and continued to prepare the next dish. At this point, Li Chundao had returned to rest, so he pushed open the kitchen door and walked in. Oh, this plate of meat is not bad. His eyes lit up, and he retreated with the plate and the condiments. Li Qiuyu's voice came from outside. Brother, I'll eat first. Gu Qingshan fell silent. These people, if he had truly been trapped in a place for countless years, suffering the ravages of the apocalypse, he wouldn't have been in such a state. Could it be an act? Gu Qingshan thought for a while. He finished stir-frying the last dish and brought it out. Fill up Qiu Shan's cup. Today's dish is really to my liking, Li Chundao said. Li Qiuyu glared at him and said no. He's still a child. He doesn't need to drink alcohol. How about some fruit juice? I have some sweeter ones here that he can drink, Wang Jin replied. Knock, knock, knock. The sound of knocking came. Zhao Qiong walked in and smiled. Excuse me, I'm here to freeload. Now that she had trained herself, she was no longer blushing. I just want to try Sam Lang's cooking. Anything else can wait until after I'm done eating. However, she had already been promoted to a high-level bookkeeper, so she was in charge of the majority of the school's books. Her authority wasn't small, and since she was a girl, Li Chundao and Wang Jin naturally didn't want to trouble her over something as trivial as eating. Zhao Qiong, come sit. Today's dishes aren't normal. I've put in a lot of effort. Gu Qingshan greeted her. Zhao Qiong grinned as she walked forward and gave him a piece of bone armor. What is this? Gu Qingshan was currently very cautious and didn't accept it. This is the ranking of the combatants of the Western Sea Grotto for the past 500 years, as well as their life stories. I heard that children your age all like to read these, Zhao Qiong explained. I'm not going to eat Sam Lang's food for free. I'm going to return the favor. Gu Qingshan was surprised. So it's this kind of knowledge. It's going to take a look. Thank you, Senior Zhao. He received the piece of bone armor and put it into his bracelet. The meal was enjoyed by both the host and the guest. After the meal, Zhao Qiong left without any hesitation. Wang Jin and Li Chundao handed things over. Then Wang Jin went to stand guard at night, while Li Chundao was responsible for protecting Li Qiushan. While his sister went to wash up, Li Chundao silently gave Gu Qingshan a bottle of liquor. Keep it for yourself. Drink it slowly, he signaled with his eyes. Gu Qingshan turned her hand and put it into her bracelet. He stood up, stretched, and yawned. So sleepy, I'm going to sleep, Am. The door closed behind him. Gu Qingshan's expression turned solemn. He silently took out the bottle of liquor, opened it, and sniffed it. A decent liquor. The alcohol content wasn't too high either, but it was quite refreshing. Gu Qingshan put the bottle away and sat blankly on the edge of the bed. Wang Jin wanted to give himself a gauntlet. Zhao Qiong gave him a bone armor full of rumors about combatants. Li Chundao wasn't too bad either. He secretly got himself a bottle of liquor. Li Qiuyu's been taking good care of me. These people, it would be great if they weren't replaced. But if they were already replaced, what should I do? Gu Qingshan's gaze appeared a bit confused. He flipped through the bone armor Zhao Qiong gave him, then casually used his inner sight to read through its contents. All of a sudden, he noticed a strange phenomenon. Spirit-linked martial artists, weapon wielder, and bone master, all of them had to go through at least 4 stages. Awaken, fusion, link, projection. These 4 stages had nothing to do with strength. They only represented the progress of fusing the inheritance. Only by reaching projection realm could one be considered to have fully awakened the inheritance. Many people were stuck at this stage, requiring a lot of time before they could break through. True combatants would usually be summoned by the bigwigs of their school as soon as they reached projection realm, then instantly became the mainstay of their school. Gu Qingshan suddenly recalled Shan Haiqi Xia's arrangements before she left. Old man embracing bones and extinguishing saintly hands were taken away by her, which meant that they were her true right-hand men. As for banishing sword Saint Wang Jin and blade venerate Li Chundao, they were ordered to stay behind. Perhaps Gu Qingshan pondered, then finally decided to take a risk. The night deepened. Wang Jin and his subordinates were currently inspecting a few relatively secluded locations. Watch out! Wang Jin abruptly wielded his sword and stood in front of them. With a resounding clang, a figure appeared in front of them. Wang Jin shouted, "You still dare to come?" He didn't immediately attack, instead took out a piece of bone armor and crushed it. 3 breaths worth of time later, Li Chundao would arrive. Gu Qingshan silently watched as he crushed the bone armor, then suddenly said, "Wang Jin, your swordsmanship has a flaw," Wang Jin coldly replied. "That's not important. What's important is that you will definitely die here today. You're that confident that you can make me stay?" Gu Qingshan asked with interest. A second later, blade venerate Li Chundao descended from above. Gu Qingshan didn't attack, only glanced at him and said, "Li Chundao, I'm calling you. Do you dare to answer? Why are you calling me Grandpa? You scum who would even tie up a child. Watch as this great one cuts you down." Li Chundao angrily roared. He and Wang Jin both charged towards Gu Qingshan. Bam! A wall seemed to have appeared in the void of space, completely blocking the two of them. They were standing still, unable to charge forward and fight. Not only forward, but they also found themselves trapped in place. What kind of sorcery is this? Wang Jin wielded his sword and slashed at the void of space in front of him. The unparalleled sword phantom slashed through the void of space, but didn't touch anything. Li Chun Dao was the same. Seeing their expressions of shock and anger, Gu Qingshan suddenly sighed in relief. Relax, I'm just here to call you out, he waved his hand. Mobile version of the fastest updated website. Chapter 1321. A row of numbers kept jumping in front of Gu Qingshan's eyes. That was his remaining soul power, which was decreasing at a rate of several dozen points per second. Whenever Li Chun Dao and Wang Shun struggled with all their might, the number would jump up. So, the Azure Dragon Origin Curse consumes soul power. Gu Qingshan thought to herself, Soul Origin Energy and World Origin Energy. These are the two highest levels of power. The Green Dragon Curse used responding to the call as the premise of karma. It consumed the highest level of power to complete this karmic binding technique. It was truly admirable. Back when the Awaitings created order, the Thousand Dragons ancestor must have known that something incredibly important had happened in the future, which was why Lady Fusey went all out to return to the past. Because of this, he used a secret technique to observe Gu Qingshan's battle, and in the end, he gave Gu Qingshan his trump card, the Azure Dragon Origin Hex, to help him and Fusey. Gu Qingshan's mind quickly moved. Her gaze moved away from the war god UI to look at the two people in front of her. There was no need to waste any more soul power. He had already confirmed that these two were the original bodies and had not been replaced. Even with their status in the School of Mountains and Seas, they had not reached that step. It seems only the strongest group of people in the entire Tomb of Myriad Beasts had been replaced. Her suspicions had been confirmed, and as her soul points continued to decrease, Gu Qingshan spoke up. Gentlemen, I came here to tell you that I'm going to the Wraith Realm. Goodbye. He was about to leave when he suddenly stopped. That's not right. The two of them were already at a very high level of psychic abilities. If they succeeded in channeling their spirits, wouldn't they be replaced by monsters from the Great Tomb? Gu Qingshan reached her hands out and grabbed the void of space. The twin swords Heaven and Earth were in his hands. After 10 days of slumber, the Heaven's sword had awakened. Gu Qingshan looked at the two of them with an embarrassed expression. Sorry, I actually didn't want to do this. Before he finished speaking, he raised his two swords. He started with the sword of the Azura deity king. Rahu covered the sun and moon. Raging flames and ice blasted towards the two of them. They were unable to dodge and could only stand where they were and take on the two divine skills, leaving fire and frost edge. Gu Qingshan had fought with Wang Jin before. At this moment, she estimated the endurance of the two. Suddenly, she removed the Green Dragon Curse and launched the last divine skill. Mental Sword, Eclipse of Sun and Moon. After experiencing countless trials and tempering, his swordsmanship had long since reached the pinnacle of the solitary sword realm, and he could break through at any time. Thus, this eclipse of the sun and moon produced a completely different phenomenon than before. The raging flames and frost suddenly surrounded the two of them, turning into a blazing sun and a bright moon that emitted an icy chill. There seemed to be some indescribable power rising from Gu Qingshan's body and rushing towards the blazing sun and moon. All of a sudden, the sun and moon were extinguished, and the world turned dark. Boom! The two of them were sent flying. What kind of sword technique is this? Wang Jin coughed up a mouthful of blood and asked unwillingly. His hands were trembling, and he could barely hold his sword. Gu Qingshan glanced at him, then at Li Chun Dao, confirming that they were only moderately wounded. After this, they needed to recover from their wounds, so they wouldn't be able to perform spirit linking for a short period of time. This is the Sword of Azura. Truthfully, with my current level of swordsmanship, I still can't exert its true power, Gu Qingshan sighed. Then continued, the apocalypse is endless, The Great Tomb is treacherous. It's best for you to think more about everything. What are you talking about? Li Chundao scowled and asked. He was much stronger than Wang Jin, so he could sense that the other party was still holding back. Gu Qingshan didn't try to kill them, and she didn't even give off any killing intent. What exactly is this person trying to do? Hearing his question, Gu Qingshan's eyes lit up. Who would have thought that this brash man's mind would be so meticulous that he was able to sense the hidden meaning behind my words? But I can't tell them what I'm about to do. Just focus on recovering. I'm not your enemy. Perhaps you'll understand later, Gu Qingshan replied. You're not our enemy? That's true. You can kill us right now. So what exactly is going on? Li Chundao was confused. His lips twitched, then said, Gu Qingshan, an apocalypse is about to descend upon the West Sea Grotto. An apocalypse? Gu Qingshan asked in surprise. Indeed, an apocalypse that cannot be destroyed. Every 12 days, it would appear within the West Sea Grotto. Perhaps if Wang Shun and I were in our normal states, we would be able to defend against it. But right now, we can no longer do anything. Li Chundao looked at Gu Qingshan and didn't say the rest of his words. What exactly is your attitude towards our school? If you truly don't hold any hostility and instead have some sort of secret that you can't reveal, then would you be able to defend against this apocalypse? From his gaze, Gu Qingshan understood what he was thinking. How regretful. I'm about to leave the West Sea Grotto. Deal with your matters by yourselves. After saying so, Gu Qingshan used ground shrink and vanished from their sight. Bastard! Li Chundao angrily shouted, then swung his blade at the sky to vent his anger. This action caused his wounds to reopen, causing him to lie on the ground, unable to move for a long while. Knock, knock, knock. Bam! After knocking, the door was pushed open. Li Sanlang sat up on his bed, still drowsily asking, Li Qiuyu, why did you just barge in like that? Li Qiuyu's expression was pale, quickly ran to his bed, grabbed his hand, and asked, Are you all right? Li Sanlang was confused. What could possibly happen to me? Li Qiuyu looked at him from top to bottom, silently sighed in relief, then forced a smile. The next few days won't be too peaceful. You can't sleep alone anymore. I'll take care of you. At this point, the window was open from the outside. 2 bone masters flew in and reported to Li Qiuyu. Your Excellency, painted bone serenity. All defensive measures have been prepared. Be careful, Li Qiuyu replied. The 2 of them received their orders and left. Gu Qingshan scanned through with his inner sight, only to see that the outside was completely surrounded by guards. 3 layers inside and 3 layers outside. Not even a drop of water could pass through. He naturally acted like he didn't know anything and doubtfully asked, Big Sis Qiuyu, what exactly happened? Before Li Qiuyu could come up with an excuse, another person flew in from the window. Zhao Qiong. They're fine, just some external wounds. Unfortunately, they're about to be pushed forward, so they can't rest for now, so they'll need a lot more time to fully recover. Zhao Qiong immediately answered. Li Qiuyu's tears instantly flowed down. She casually wiped her face and calmly said, It's fine as long as they're not dead. Now that the sect master isn't here, and my brother and the Sword Saint are both injured, I'll be responsible for protecting Sanlang. You alone won't be enough, Zhao Qiong replied. She walked in front of Li Qiushan, stroked his young face, and said, I'll do it as well this time. Li Qiuyu didn't reject her stubbornly, and only said, All right, your attainments and bone techniques are higher than mine, but you're not very good at fighting. If there's a battle later on, you'll have to help me use my techniques. I'm good at that, Zhao Qiong replied. Li Qiushan looked at Zhao Qiong, then at Li Qiuyu, then couldn't help but ask, Gu Qingshan came again? The 2 girls nodded. Unless Li Qiushan was imprisoned in his room, there was no way to hide this from him. The commotion just now was too great, so the entire school already knew about it. Li Qiushan jumped down from the bed, walked outside, and called out, I'm a scourge. Just let me go. Otherwise, that Gu Qingshan will hurt you if I stay here. The 2 girls hurriedly pulled him back. Qiushan, Gu Qingshan wants to take you to the Great Tomb. That's a place of certain death. Some apocalypses aren't something that humans can resist. Zhao Qiong said. Li Qiuyu replied, You're not allowed to go as long as I, Li Qiuyu, still have a single breath left in me. I won't let anyone bully you. Gu Qingshan turned around to look at the two girls. Their expressions were filled with nervousness, fear, but mostly determination. Zhao Qiong lowered her voice and said, "An apocalypse is about to arrive. You really can't run around an apocalypse?" Li Qiushan asked. Li Qiuyu sternly replied, "That's right. That's an apocalypse that only my big bro and the Sword Saints group can resist. Other than them, anyone else who goes out at this time would only end up dead. That's why I want you to obediently stay in your room." She pulled Gu Qingshan back to her room and sat down on the bed. In truth, this world was a place of natural selection, and during the apocalypse, it was even more so the survival of the fittest. The monsters that escaped from the Great Tomb did so in order to escape the apocalypse and survive. The humans of the Tomb of Myriad Beasts also did so in order to survive. Tigers eat sheep, termites eat trees, all for the sake of survival. Who's to blame? Gu Qingshan fell into thought. This isn't a good time, and I shouldn't do anything too out of line. If possible, I should hide behind the scenes and act when no one is paying attention. That way, the cost would be minimal, but the efficiency would be high. Because if I'm determined to hide, with my many years of experience, the gourd adorable, Sumeru thaumaturgy, orange sovereign, and mystery of all beings equal, I can make it so that no one can find me. My enemies wouldn't even know who they are. But the current situation is a bit different. He lowered his head and lightly clenched his fist. 1 breath, 2 breaths, 3 breaths. A line of glowing text suddenly appeared on the war god UI. Frowny face, you've obtained the knowledge. 6 paths of reincarnation mystery fist technique. Are you willing to spend 10 million soul points to fully comprehend the Samsara mystery fist technique? Ethereal? I'll pay it directly, Gu Qingshan replied. Currently comprehending the fist technique, please wait a moment. The two girls watched as Li Sanlang returned to his bed without saying a word, feeling a bit worried. Li Qiuyu stroked his head and said, "Don't be afraid. The sect master might return very soon." Zhao Qiong also said, "Sanlang, you should rest well. With me and your sister here, you'll be fine." The young man then looked up and smiled at the two girls. He slowly spoke, "Senior Zhao, from what I saw in your bone piece, when a person reaches divine reflection realm from spirit linking, there would be some unique signs. Is that correct?" Zhao Qiong nodded and replied, "You're a bit late. This is something that everyone knows. Those combatants would give off a unique aura. That is the Samsara's origin aura. It can't be faked all of a sudden." Both she and Li Qiuyu slowly moved their gazes around the room. Wind. A gust of wind that appeared out of nowhere was recklessly blowing through the room. A faint yellow glow emanated from the young man's body, illuminating the entire room. Like this. Chapter 1322. Gu Qingshan was pulled back to the front of the bed. He stared at the War God UI and used War God skills to activate the Samsara Mystery Fist technique. Ethereal. Unexpectedly, new notifications popped up one after another. You've grasped this Mystery Fist technique. Please choose the deity authority you wish to fuse with. Gu Qingshan quickly skimmed through and realized. The War God UI said that this Mystery Fist technique could only be performed by a deity of the Samsara world. Different deities would also have different fist techniques. How miraculous! Gu Qingshan hesitated briefly, but didn't fuse with his Huang Quan Devil King identity. Many people already knew that he was the Huang Quan Devil King. If this fist technique corresponded to a deity authority, others might notice it when he performed it in the future. Although the possibility of that was very small, he had to be careful. Gu Qingshan's thoughts turned and recalled his other deity authority. Anyone who wields a Huang Quan divine armament is a deity of Huang Quan. Then, other than my Huang Quan Devil King identity, I also have another deity authority, Samsara the Mountain God. This was a secret. Other than the people around me, no one else knows about Shanu's background. In other words, I am the Samsara Mountain God. Gu Qingshan silently muttered in his mind. Suddenly, the entire world went away from him. He found himself in a no-man's land. There was nothing around him, only a vast expanse of land. Gu Shan stood still. The six paths great mountain sword flew out and entered his hand. He held it tightly. There seemed to be thousands of words whispering in his ears. Gu Shan understood. Some entities had also come to this place. The place where the samsara deity awakened all of their mysteries was in this space. But where exactly is this place? Gu Shan stood still. He felt like he was understanding something. But when he seriously thought about it, he couldn't think of anything. What exactly is it? Gu Shan felt this was an extremely uncomfortable feeling. At the very next moment, he abruptly left that world. He returned, still sitting on the edge of the bed, blanking out while listening to Li Qiuyu and Zhao Qiong's persuasion. Time. It seemed like only a blink of an eye had passed. Suddenly, mysterious knowledge and comprehension exploded in his mind, forming fist techniques one after another, as if he was born with the power. Lines of glowing text appeared on the war god. UI, frowny face, you've learned the mystery fist technique. Ethereal, fist of mountain. This secret fist technique is divided into 4 styles. Grand Mountain, No Mercy, 10,000 Shadows, and Void Calamity. At this time, the 2 girls were still at the side, so he didn't have the time to look at it carefully. He only roughly scanned the contents of the 4 fist techniques. Interestingly enough, these 4 styles of fist techniques seem to resonate with the 4 thaumaturgies of the 6 paths Great Mountain Sword: Divine Mountain Protection, Lawbreaker, Living's Wisdom, and Invincible. While he was reading this, another line of glowing text appeared on the war god. UI, frowny face, you've completely grasped the Samsara mystery fist technique. Ethereal. At this point, you've killed the Samsara chief war shaman and fully comprehended its inheritance. You are one of the Samsara lords of war, participating in the new era's Samsara clash for supremacy. Your inherited fist technique is the proof of your position in the war. Gu Shan was slightly stunned. A new shaman? In other words, I've completely replaced that human-headed, snake-bodied creature and obtained its identity? That chief war shaman originally wanted to obtain a new body in order to avoid the apocalypse within the Great Tomb. In history, such a thing had probably never failed before. After all, to the beings of the tomb, the humans of the tomb of myriad beasts were nothing but ants. Who could have thought that it would be killed by the original owner of its body and take away its identity instead? Gu Shan's thoughts surged as countless strategies flashed through his mind. At this point, Li Qiuyu stroked his head and consoled him. Don't be afraid, the sect master might return very soon. Zhao Qiong also softly said, San Lang, you should rest well, with me and your sister here. You'll be fine. Gu Shan heard that. After a few moments of silence, he suddenly smiled. Senior Zhao, I read on that piece of bone of yours that when a person's spirit linking to the projection realm, there would be some unique signs. Is that right? While talking to Zhao Qiong, he lightly clenched his fist. A faint yellow glow emanated from his body, illuminating the entire room. Zhao Qiong and Li Qiuyu were both stunned. Zhao Qiong blankly muttered, No, that's impossible. The speed of your spirit linking is too fast. It's like she didn't finish her sentence, as if afraid that this was all a dream. It's like a peerless combatant, Li Qiuyu added. Her gaze was clear as water as she looked at Gu Shan. This is the power of the Samsara origin. I can sense it. Zhao Qiong, on the other hand, said, but I heard that after reaching projection realm, one would suddenly become enlightened, recall the events of their past lives, and awaken some wisdom. Li San Lang, this time, it was Gu Shan's turn to be stunned. What a huge lie. Such a statement concealed the changes in those people's personalities and actions. No wonder no one suspected this, even after so many years. All of a sudden, the entire city began to tremble. Roar! A furious roar filled with brutal killing intent resounded from the farthest reaches of the world. Oh no, that apocalypse has begun to activate, Zhao Qiong exclaimed. Li Qiuyu was worried about her brother, so she hurriedly tried to leave, saying, San Lang, stay here for now. I'll only take a look, then return to protect you. She was pulled back by someone. When she turned around, it was Li San Lang. What is it? Li Qiuyu asked. In the entire school, I seem to be the one with the highest spirit linking realm, Gu Qingshan replied. He walked past Li Qiuyu, leapt forward, and disappeared without a trace. The city wall. On top of the city wall, thousand saints blade venerate. Li Chun Dao and banishing sword saint. Wang Jin stood still, staring straight at the horizon. Each of them were surrounded by 7 to 8 bone masters, using various bone fragments to heal their wounds. Gu Qingshan's attacks were well controlled, so the wounds she inflicted on them would require a long period of recuperation before they could fully recover. This sort of temporary healing couldn't heal them instantly. Of course, if Shan Haiqi Xia and the others were to help, they might be able to quickly heal them. But they weren't here. Roar! At the edge of the sky, a deafening roar resounded once again. Gradually, a gigantic figure appeared in everyone's vision. Its body was so large that it could almost hold up the sky. With each step it took, it would cross over mountains and rivers, approaching the school of Shanghai at a visible speed. Closer and closer. Closer and closer. With a closer look, one could see that this was a humanoid monster wearing tattered armor and chains. Its armor, as well as its chains, were all constructed from the souls of living beings. Through some sort of unknown technique, all of the souls had been glued together to form a full set of armor, all of which were howling in pain. When this monster first appeared, it was invisible and formless. The souls of living beings killed by it couldn't be freed. Instead, they would become its weapons and armor, helping it grow stronger and stronger until it finally destroyed the entire world. How regretful! Without a certain level of power, you can't harm it at all. Only you and I can affect it. No one else can, Li Chun Dao sighed. Wang Jin lightly nodded and said nothing. Li Chun Dao glanced at him, only to see that Wang Jin was still trembling, barely maintaining his balance with his sword. Hey, can you do it? Li Chun Dao doubtfully asked. Wang Jin used his sword to support the ground and replied with a calm expression. What a joke in my current state. It's already quite impressive for me to be able to stand here stably. What about you? Li Chun Dao replied. Me, I'm still a bit stronger than you, so I can still stand stably and walk a few steps on my own. Wang Jin paused briefly, then praised, You're a few years older than me. Sure enough, but different. The ground was trembling non-stop. The monster was getting closer and closer. Its screams had become incredibly clear. It was actually the sound of countless souls wailing in unison. Wang Jin took a deep breath, spread his legs apart, and stabilized his body. He shakily raised his sword and spoke in a low voice. Chun Dao. You go first. 10 blades appeared next to Li Chun Dao. Li Chun Dao casually picked one and asked, What about you? I'll prepare for a bit. If I can't do it, I'll sacrifice this life of mine and unleash a strike, Wang Jin replied. Li Chun Dao raised his eyebrows, tightly gripped his blade, then suddenly laughed. What a joke! This great one is here. How could you? Dash. The two of them froze. They looked at each other in surprise. The bone masters around them all turned to look at the sky behind them. A cluster of dim yellow light was drifting through the air towards them. Behind that cluster of light were Li Qiuyu, Zhao Qiong, as well as countless soldiers. My eyes must be deceiving me, Wang Jin doubtfully said. No, you're fine. I'm just dreaming, Li Chun Dao moaned and replied. The cluster of dim yellow light descended from the sky and stood in front of the two of them. Li Sanlang, what are you? Wang Jin could hear himself speaking. He couldn't ask any further. The 6 powers of origin turned into a dim yellow light that circled around Li Sanlang's skinny body. Big brother Wang, you owe me a pair of gloves, Li Sanlang smiled and said. Without saying anything else, Wang Jin flicked his wrist to take out a pair of crimson beast-hide gloves and gave them to the young man in front of him. Flame gloves, rare. Originally, I was going to give them to you on your birthday, Wang Jin replied. Li Sanlang received the gloves, putting them on as he asked, You even know my birthday? What a strange feeling. Someone actually wanted to celebrate my birthday with me? Although this is a fake birthday, why would someone want to celebrate my birthday with me? Li Sanlang silently put on the gloves. Elemental fire began to glow from the gloves. Li Qiuyu found out and informed us, Wang Jin truthfully replied. Li Sanlang turned around to look at Li Qiuyu. She had a worried expression on her face. Worried? Gu Qingshan's mind turned. Reaching projection realm doesn't mean you can deal with the apocalypse in front of you. Projection realm can only prove that you've reached the peak of spirit linking. As for your actual strength, that can only be tested. Li Sanlang is only a 13-year-old child. If he can't win, who can save him? Gu Qingshan understood what Li Qiuyu was trying to say. He smiled at Li Qiuyu, then waved his hand at Zhao Qiong and said, "Senior Zhao, I don't have any innate wisdom. I only need this." He raised his fist. A ball of flame emerged from the gauntlet, illuminating his young and tender face. "Let's go." Li Sanlang's figure leapt forward, flying out of the city wall amidst the clamoring of the crowd, only to see a faint light, like a firefly in the middle of the night, flying across the sky by itself. The faint yellow light headed straight for the mountainous apocalypse monster. Suddenly, it disappeared, ethereal. Li Sanlang's thunderous roar resounded across heaven and earth. Mobile version of the fastest updated website. Chapter 1323. Gu Qingshan bellowed. The dim yellow radiance of the six origins disappeared from his body. The raging flame on the animal skin gloves seemed to be triggered by something, and suddenly shrank into a blazing ball of light. At this moment, the apocalyptic monster was still 1,000 feet away. From afar, Gu Qingshan threw a punch. He used all of his strength to throw a punch at the void of space. In an instant, the wailing of the myriad of souls had stopped abruptly. Thousands of feet away, the apocalyptic monster maintained its forward stride and did not move. It stopped there. The souls on its body also fell into a daze. One breath passed. The monster that shouldered the mission of destroying everything remained motionless. Between heaven and earth, there was only the whistling of the wind. Gu Qingshan retracted her fist and stood in the air. This fist was the first fist of ethereal. Fist of mountain, Grand Mount. The Grand Mountain, the thought-destroying fist. It ignores space and distance, shattering the thoughts of those who are hit, turning all thoughts into nothingness. Unless one is injured, this state will last for 10 breaths of time. After 10 breaths of time, the victim will wake up as if waking from a dream. With just one punch, the apocalyptic monster and the billions of souls were all destroyed. Just the first punch alone was enough to let Gu Qingshan witness the secret fist technique of the 6 paths of reincarnation. At this time, on the city wall behind him, everyone had already seen the clues. Cheers erupted from the city walls. Li Qiuyu was anxious and scared. She shouted, "Quick, take this chance to attack it, Sanlang." Li Chun Dao threw his blade away, put his hands on his lips, and whistled loudly. Zhao Qiong was an introverted person to begin with, so she was currently covering her mouth, letting her tears flow without saying a single word. Holding his sword, Wang Jinju struggled to stand on the spot, shouting with all his might, "Li Sanlang, kill it!" Hearing this shout, the noisy crowd on the city wall gradually unified their statements. They let out a roar that was as loud as a tsunami. "Li Sanlang, kill it! Li Sanlang, kill it! Li Sanlang, kill it!" Gu Qingshan was in the air. Hearing the urging of the people behind her, she couldn't help but take a deep breath. There were still 7 breaths left. Enough! Gu Qingshan clenched her fists tightly and flew quickly in the sky. He kept flying up, towards the doomsday monster's head. From the crowd's perspective, they could only see his figure, which was as tiny as a speck of dust, lightly punching the city-sized apocalyptic monster's head. As the distance was too far, the punch seemed too ordinary. It didn't even make a sound. As soon as Li Sanlang punched out, his body flipped in the air and he flew back. Everyone looked at him, then at the monster. The monster was still the same as before, standing there without moving. It didn't look like it had suffered any injuries. So that was it. All of a sudden, Li Chun Dao's eyelids twitched as he angrily shouted, "Sanlang, watch your back." Everyone looked over and saw that the monster behind Li Sanlang had suddenly moved. It took a step forward, raised its hand, and swung the soul chain to catch Li Sanlang. Your destiny is destruction. The monster's deep voice filled the entire world. Run! Get out of the way! Hide! Everyone anxiously shouted. But Li Sanlang was still flying through the air at a steady pace. In the blink of an eye, the apocalyptic monster's soul chain had already wrapped around Li Sanlang. But Li Sanlang wasn't restrained at all and continued to fly forward. The soul chain passed through Li Sanlang's body, turned into countless sprites of light, and disappeared into the void of space. Following that, the apocalyptic monster's body gave off trillions of faint blue sprites of light. No! With a low voice, the apocalyptic monster staggered and knelt on the ground. It propped its head up with both hands as its body slowly collapsed and disappeared. The trillions of sprites of light turned into a blue torrent that danced in the air before finally arriving in front of Li Sanlang. It circled around Li Sanlang for a long time without dispersing. Li Sanlang hovered in the air. Countless souls manifested from the torrent. They were male, female, old, young. All of them nodded, smiled, and bowed to Li Sanlang. The souls were freed. Li Sanlang told them, Go to where you belong. The souls nodded and once again melted into the torrent. A few moments later, the blue torrent of souls slowly broke through the void of space and left this world. Li Sanlang sighed. That strike just now was the second strike of the mystery fist technique. Ethereal. No pardon. No pardon. This strike destroys all techniques, including all tangible and intangible, illusory and real. All living beings will crumble and return to primal chaos. Before activating no pardon, you must first land a strike on your target. Attention! If your opponent is at least twice as strong as you are, the power of this strike will gradually weaken, unable to completely destroy the enemy goo. Qing Shan understood. That apocalyptic monster, just now, when Li Chun Dao and Wang Shun were at their peak, they would have been able to stop it. So if I used my sword, I would have been able to stop that monster. However, I needed a chance to prove myself, so I used Li Sanlang's identity to unleash this fist technique. The results were about the same as I expected. I didn't even need to use ethereal, myriad shadows, and ethereal, null tribulation, but the first two strikes alone were enough to kill that apocalyptic monster. In truth, there was one good thing about no pardon, which was that it was very similar to Inch Desolation. And it was even stronger than Inch Desolation. If that's the case, the Samsara Chief War Shaman's fist technique was inferior to mine. Correspondingly, his original deific authority was also inferior to mine. After all, ethereal requires the deific authority of the Samsara deity to determine the power of the fist technique. That's strange. I'm only a deity of Huang Quan, while that snake-bodied human-headed creature was able to become the chief war shaman of the Samsara. So his deific authority should be higher than mine, right? Unless... Gu Qing Shan silently asked in her mind, Shanu, let me ask you, is the Samsara's mountain god higher than the Huang Quan Devil King's deific authority? Shanu's voice came, Gongzi, as you know, the Grand Taiwei Mountain is the divine mountain that protects the entire Samsara. It stops the winds of chaotic tribulation as well as everything else. Otherwise, all living beings within the Samsara would be destroyed by the calamities of the outside world. Gu Qing Shan was a bit surprised. That does seem to be the case. When I went to the secret passage of the Dusty World, I passed through a section of the winds of chaotic tribulation. There were no living beings there. Even I had to avoid it. But the Grand Taiwei Mountain was able to stop this destructive wind. Thinking about it a bit more, during the Battle of Huang Quan, the eternal Abyss Soul artifact, the seven-colored spear, was able to destroy everything in Huang Quan, except for the Grand Taiwei Mountain. At that time, the Grand Taiwei Mountain played a crucial role in the battle. If that's the case, Shenu, the Grand Taiwei Mountain doesn't only exist for Huang Quan. Perhaps the Samsara Mountain God is actually a deity that protects the Samsara? Gu Qing Shan asked. That should be the case, but I'm not too sure either. After all, a long time ago when I woke up, I only knew the Devil King Warden Rod and the Forgetting River Soul Flaying Hook. At the time, We only knew about what happened in Huang Quan, Shanu replied. Gu Qingshan lightly nodded. He continued to fly back, quickly landing on the city wall in front of Li Chun Dao's group. Everyone looked at him, and for a moment, they all revealed smiles. What kind of fist technique is that? Wang Jingxian asked. Samsara mystery fist technique, Gu Qingshan replied. Samsara? Mystery fist technique? The big shots looked at Zhao Qiong. As the head bookkeeper, she had seen a lot of things, so her knowledge of the samsara was greater than anyone else's. Not to mention, over the countless years, many combatants had reached projection realm, so everyone had already researched and summarized the corresponding knowledge. This wasn't really a secret, Zhao Qiong replied. To be able to be called a mystery, it should be the strongest of all the projection realms. No wonder you didn't even turn around, but shouldn't you pay a price for making us worry like this? Li Chun Dao asked. Gu Qingshan was a bit surprised, then noticed something amiss. Hey, what are you trying to do? A second later, Li Chun Dao waved his hand. The people around him rushed forward, grabbed Li Sanlang, and threw him into the sky. Ah, we have a new combatant. Aha! He defeated the apocalyptic monster by himself. Well done. Everyone laughed heartily. Chapter 1324. Even the happiest of times would eventually fade away. Li Sanlang defeated the apocalyptic monster head-on, saving the entire school of Shanghai from its crisis. The entire celebration lasted for half a day. While everyone was still drinking and celebrating the addition of a new combatant to the school, Li Sanlang had already silently disappeared from the crowd. The center of the city, a black, square-shaped building, the bookkeeping room. The mysteries and secrets of the tomb of myriad beasts that descended from the great tomb were recorded here. Li Chun Dao brought Li Sanlang to the highest floor of the bookkeeping room. Sanlang, watch your words later. Definitely do not offend the Grand Elder, Li Chun Dao whispered. Li Sanlang curiously asked, if he's so powerful, why didn't he investigate the great tomb with the sect master? Why didn't he act just now? Li Chun Dao lowered his voice. The Grand Elder is wounded and has been in seclusion, but the sect master has never looked down on him. Furthermore, even if he's wounded to such an extent, his authority, he's responsible for the confirmation of every spirit caster who has broken through to projection realm, as well as the authority to mobilize the majority of the sect's affairs. Saying so, he turned to Li Sanlang. Li Sanlang nodded, expressing that he understood the importance of this meeting. Who would have thought? Shan Haiqi Xia still had a card up her sleeve, placing a Grand Elder in the school who cannot act. These monsters sure are sharp. He silently muttered in his mind. The two of them finally reached the top floor. Knock, knock, knock. Li Chun Dao knocked on the door and respectfully said, Grand Elder, I've brought him here a few moments later. Come in, an old voice resounded. Li Chun Dao gave Li Sanlang another glance, signaling him to not offend the Grand Elder. Li Sanlang could only nod again. It was now that Li Chun Dao pushed the door open. The majority of the room didn't have any walls, only a thin layer of transparent crystal. Furthermore, as this was the tallest building, the scenery of the city and the wilderness could be seen through the thin layer of crystal. In other words, even if the Grand Elder was in seclusion, the scene of my battle against the apocalyptic monster could still be clearly seen from this room. A skinny old man was standing on a luxurious carpet, looking at Li Sanlang. His gaze carried a sense of judgment. I've seen the battle just now. Not bad. As expected of a projection realm shaman, the old man praised. Greetings, Great Elder. Li Sanlang and Li Chun Dao both bowed. Afterward, their eyes met. The Great Elder smiled and took the lead to ask, Child, have you recalled your past life? Or the birth of extraordinary wisdom? Li Sanlang's expression was filled with curiosity and naivety. He said in confusion, I don't know what a past life is, and I don't know what inborn wisdom is. Because he had said something similar to Zhao Qiong before, if he changed his mind now, she would become even more suspicious. Hearing this, the smile on the Great Elder's face became somewhat inexplicable. Li Chun Dao, you can leave for now and find a bone master to heal your wounds. As for this new combatant, I will talk to him alone and teach him how to develop his wisdom, he gently said. Understood, Li Chun-Dao replied. He went out and shut the door. The great elder waved his hand, and a crystal appeared in the void. Li Chun-Dao's figure appeared on the crystal. He stood at the door for a while, then slowly walked down the stairs and left this black tower. An outstanding human, but that's all there is to it. After saying so, the great elder put the crystal away and evaluated Li Sanlang with a gloomy expression. Li Sanlang, you said you didn't awaken your inborn wisdom? His voice was a bit sharp. It was now that the naivety on Li Sanlang's face completely disappeared. Only then did his aura change. Li Sanlang spat on the ground and scoffed. Insect, what right do you have to interfere with this great one's business? The great elder froze. What's going on? He tried asking. You and I are both in the same body. It's fortunate that, before he could even finish his sentence, Li Sanlang abruptly threw a punch at him from thin air. In that split second, the great elder didn't even have time to use any defensive measures, only feeling all of his thoughts vanishing as his mind went blank. When he regained consciousness, he found that the young man was hovering in the air while he was being held by the neck like a dead dog. The young man coldly stared at him, like a god looking down at the mortals on the ground from the clouds. I am far more noble than you can imagine, and yet you dare to accept my bow. Saying so, the young man slowly raised his fist. His voice sounded like a chant, but also like the judgment of a deity. Die, turn into ash, then return to primal chaos. This is your final destination. Dash, ethereal, no pardon. His fist exuded a faint yellow aura. As soon as this fist was unleashed, the light around the great elder's body lit up, then quickly dimmed. The great elder's entire heart began to tremble. How could he not know that he was already at the brink of death? I saw inch desolation from afar once before. Inch desolation could only break through all defenses, but now that this terrifying entity had fully awakened, he could destroy that apocalyptic monster with a single punch. Such power, I don't even have the ability to resist. It's been a very, very long time since I've seen such power. What kind of entity would be able to wield such power? He said that it was the samsara clash for supremacy, which means he knows the truth of everything. Could it be? The great elder suddenly realized and shouted in a frenzy, Sir, spare my life, sir. I beg of you. The young man coldly stared at him, then suddenly smiled. A different kind of cruelty manifested from his smile. Scum like you. Even if you manage to find a body and escape from the apocalypse, you'll only be struggling at death's door. You won't be of any use in the new era's samsara clash for supremacy, the young man coldly said. He raised his fist high, and a murderous intent gradually burst forth from his tone. To me, you have no value at all. As the fist was about to strike, the great elder hurriedly called out, Sir, you've only just arrived in this world. There are many things you don't know. You need me to explain everything to you. What I need to know? Gu Qing-shan asked. Substitution, the soul substitution technique that allowed us to escape the apocalypse. Perhaps you don't even know who started it in the Great Necropolis. Furthermore, we found the corpse of a wraith from the previous era outside the Great Tomb. It was the only entity that managed to escape the fate of being broken by the samsara. And also, you must have noticed that your power has been greatly weakened. You can't even perform a complete fist technique. Gu Qing-shan scowled and asked with a long voice, Hey Chem, is that so? He switched to another fist technique. Sure enough, myriad shadows and null tribulation are unable to fully utilize the power of the samsara. If I insist on using these two fist techniques, it's not impossible, but the power would be greatly reduced. How strange. Why can the first two techniques be used, but the two more powerful ones are unable to fully resonate with and adhere to the samsara origin? This time, Gu Qing-shan was truly confused. Seeing his expression, the great elder sighed in relief. My chance to survive is right here. The great elder spilled the beans. Sir, the samsara has been completely broken. The power of the samsara has become extremely weak. You've also been affected. That's why you're like this. All of us are the same. Gu Shan loosened his fist and spoke without changing his expression. Continue. The great elder showed a flattering smile and spoke. Sir, it's said that it's hard to clap with only one hand. Of course, you don't have this problem, but you will need a few subordinates to help you gather information, take care of miscellaneous matters, or even collect the fragments of the samsara. Gu Shan looked at him, slowly loosened her grip on his neck, then lightly patted his old face and mocked. Someone like you wants to be my follower? The great elder replied, Sir, this humble one is useless, but I do have an urgent matter to report right now. Speak. At the outer perimeter of the great tomb, the wraith's corpse has begun to react. Obviously, it might awaken at any moment. No one knows what will happen next. So please take a look, sir. This is quite interesting, Gu Shan mused. He glanced at the great elder. The great elder immediately volunteered. Sir, I'll lead you there. Mobile version of the fastest updated website. Chapter 1325. Sir, I'll take you there. The Grand Elder looked at Gu Shan and eagerly said. Gu Shan looked at him with an expression of disgust, as well as a bit of hesitation. After all, I'm putting on a very high profile. If I suddenly agreed, the other party would instead be suspicious. He simply squinted his eyes to observe her, seemingly contemplating something. This attitude caused the Grand Elder to feel even more anxious. Sir, don't worry. In truth, since we've left the apocalypse and arrived in this world, there would naturally be various problems, especially that wraith's corpse, which seems to be about to awaken at this crucial moment. There are those who wish to cooperate with the heirs of the wraiths. There are those who wish to monopolize all secrets, including the remaining true tomb of the samsara within the great tomb. There are also those who wish to investigate what happened when the samsara was shattered. In short, there are many factions and conflicts, so you truly need some helpers. Gu Shan appeared to be contemplating. Who would have thought that these monsters weren't actually on the same side? That's true. Where there are living beings, there would naturally be conflicts and benefits. This has never been an exception. Right now, both the Tomb of Myriad Beasts and the Wraith Realm are paying the most attention to that Wraith's corpse. There might be a secret that no one knows about on that Wraith's corpse. Because of that, the monsters who want to cooperate with the Wraith Realm are my enemies. In short, I seem to have gotten involved in a historical milestone. Gu Shan's heart sank. This event that could change everything happened in the Samsara tomb. Gu Shan was almost certain that this event would involve the entire Samsara world, or perhaps even more than just the samsara itself. How many people are preparing for this? What exactly would that wraith's corpse bring? In this era, at this crucial moment in history, how many people are hiding behind the scenes, scheming for secrets that I don't even know about? None of those who are willing to participate in this event are idiots. Perhaps their confrontation will decide the future of the infinite worlds. Unfortunately, there's too little information. These people have already been preparing for many years, while I've only just arrived. Gu Shan suddenly felt a sense of helplessness, but he soon pulled himself together and said, Then let me ask you, in this group of people, what are they most inclined to do? Suddenly, a female voice rang out. We are inclined to investigate the secret behind the shattering of the 6 paths of reincarnation. Gu Shan didn't turn around. This was the voice of Shan Hai-Chi-Xia. She had personally rushed back from the great necropolis. Great Elder said anxiously, Why did you come back? Without you there, I'm afraid our people will be at a disadvantage. It's fine, we're both back. Shan Hai-Chi-Xia stared straight at Gu Shan and slowly said, 7 or 8 people of different ages and dressed differently spread out from behind her, surrounding the entire room. Old men embracing bones and annihilating sacred hands were among them. Gu Shan remained calm and collected. This place was completely sealed off by the other party, so he could not reveal any flaws. His gaze followed these people. Who are you? He looked at Shan Hai-Chi-Xia and asked with a tone of superiority. Shan Hai-Chi-Xia smiled and gestured. Seeing that, they all chanted an incantation, unleashed an isolation technique and completely sealed off the highest floor of the Black Tower. From this moment onwards, the outside world would no longer be able to obtain any information from this place. Shan Hai Chi Xia walked up to him, knelt on one knee, and said, "As soon as ethereal was used, I immediately sensed this fluctuation. I never thought that Sir Shaman would awaken earlier than I had predicted." She seemed a bit excited and continued, "When this child used inch desolation, I knew that Sir had arrived." Gu Qingshan went silent for a split second. He casually said, "So it was you." These monsters were isolated by the apocalypse in the great necropolis, so they shouldn't know each other. Then what's going on here? Gu Qingshan's thoughts quickly turned. That's right, Shan Hai Chi Xia looked up, her eyes glowing as she looked at Gu Qingshan. "Sir Shaman, I never thought that you would specifically choose a person from my sect to meet up with me." Gu Qingshan stared closely at her, then muttered in a low voice, "That was a coincidence. In truth, it was this person's identity that caught my eye." He seemed to have recalled something and didn't continue. "This woman suddenly ran here, acting like she was reuniting with an acquaintance. Well, I don't know anything at all, so how am I supposed to continue?" Even with Gu Qingshan's vast experience in battle, he didn't think things would develop to this point. The only thing he could do now was to keep the topic within the scope of what he knew. Otherwise, if he was exposed, all of his previous efforts would be in vain. Sure enough, Gu Qingshan's words piqued everyone's curiosity. The 8 of them all turned to Gu Qingshan, but none of them dared to ask. Asking would be the same as courting death. After all, this was his personal matter, and it was related to his power. Only Shan Hai Chi Xia cautiously asked, "Has Your Excellency's fist technique improved?" Gu Qingshan cautiously nodded, then replied, "My fist technique has become stronger, but due to the lack of samsara origin, I can't fully display it from a fist technique perspective. Merciless was a power of a higher level than inch desolation." It was understandable that he would make such a choice. Everyone appeared joyful. Who wouldn't want to follow a powerful person? If this powerful person had become even stronger, that would naturally be a good thing. But giving up on the primordial shaman deity's identity is truly regretful, Shan Hai Chi Xia said. Gu Qingshan silently realized. So that monster's deific authority was the primordial shaman deity. I've already killed it. If it had truly replaced me and taken control of my body, it would have naturally met up with Shan Hai Chi Xia. What was its goal? Did it have any opponents? What would its opponents think? Seeing that Shan Hai Chi Xia was about to say something else, Gu Qingshan waved her hand dismissively and casually said, "Tell me about the current situation. I'll tell you about the deific authority later." Since it was His Excellency's order, Shan Hai Chi Xia could only swallow the question that was about to come out of her mouth and said, "The situation is very complicated. Just as the desolate Black Ape deity had said, the other groups all have their own plans. Some of them have reached an agreement with the Wraith Realm, while others have banded together and are ready to kill them all at any moment. These people will not hold back. They desire everything." Gu Qingshan silently chuckled, then repeated, "No one will hold back." His gaze passed through everyone's faces. 1, 2, 3, excluding Great Elder and myself, there were a total of 8 of them. It would have been fine if only one person had returned, but 8. The commotion was too great. Gu Qingshan asked, "Have all of you returned, or have some of you stayed behind?" "It's too dangerous for just 1 or 2 people to stay behind, so we've all returned," Shan Hai Chi Xia continued. "Of course, if a battle truly breaks out, we will all give it our all, Your Excellency." Gu Qingshan cut her off. "Listen, I've only just awoken, while you've already been working hard here for a while, so I need to know what you've been up to. Trust me, this is very important." While saying that, he focused his attention on his left eye. Both temporal recollection and parallel dream are currently unusable. Otherwise, I would have been able to obtain even more information and wouldn't have to interrupt others to prevent them from asking me something I don't know. Seeing how cautious he was, Shan Hai Chi Xia solemnly reported, "While Your Excellency wasn't here, we've been observing without making any rash moves, although I don't know what exactly happened to that corpse. Under the current circumstances, it wouldn't be right to continue observing." Gu Qingshan immediately replied. Everyone looked at him in confusion. Shan Haichi Xia also patiently explained, Your Excellency, you've only just awoken, so you probably don't know the specifics of this matter. That's right, everyone knew that he had only just awoken, so he didn't know about this matter. Earlier, the Grand Elder said that he had only just awoken, so there were a few things he didn't know, including this wraith corpse. Because of that, no matter what Gu Qingshan said about this wraith corpse, he wouldn't let the cat out of the bag. Perhaps he could use this matter to talk about what he was worried about. Gu Qingshan replied, Don't think of others as fools. When two tigers fight, they definitely won't allow anyone to stand by and take advantage of the situation. If you had retreated to one side and waited for these two groups to kill each other, they might have first banded together to eliminate all of you before engaging in the final battle. Everyone went silent. Gu Qingshan sighed. If I'm their main fighting force, and I haven't shown up yet, then their strategy of hiding their strength and waiting to see what happens isn't wrong. But that wraith corpse has already begun to change, and the battle for benefits is about to reach its climax. At such a crucial moment, if they still cower to one side, that would be a huge problem. Gu Qingshan thought of something and said, I can tell you this. The reason why I changed my deific authority wasn't just to make my fist stronger. There was also another important reason. Your Excellency, what is that reason? Shan Haichi Xia asked. In truth, she was a bit confused about this, but still couldn't figure out where the problem was. Gu Qingshan replied, For the sake of the current situation, if I'm not mistaken, those people have already followed you here. Before he finished, he abruptly unleashed countless punches from the air. Ethereal Grand Mountain. Shan Haichi Xia felt intense wind blowing in the entire room. Boom! The roof of the room was blown away by the intense wind, revealing several dozen black figures in front of everyone. These black figures' presence wasn't any weaker than any of the people here. They slowly took on the appearance of humans. These people were all tomb monsters that had been converted. All of a sudden, a resounding and powerful voice resounded in the air. War Shaman. Your mind has actually become smarter under the torture of the apocalypse. A figure appeared in the sky. Shan Haichi Xia was shocked and exclaimed in shock, The desolate beast king god. Gu Qingshan looked at that figure and silently sighed. This was only the beginning. Within the vortex of the era, everything had only just begun. The true VIPs were about to begin a cruel struggle to the death. The path of history would be filled with bloodshed and schemes, one step at a time. And now, I've fallen into this vortex. Chapter 1326. In the sky, a child was quietly looking down at the scene below. Although he appeared to be younger than Li San Lang, his expression and actions didn't resemble that of a child of around 10 years of age. The king of the desolate beasts resided within this body. His voice wasn't immature at all, but rather powerful and forceful. Shaman, I've always thought that you were an expert in combat, but lacked strategic judgment. Who would have thought? You've changed. Hearing the other party's probing words, Gu Qingshan casually replied, If your body and soul were constantly bitten by countless apocalyptic insects throughout the endless years, you would have also changed. The desolate beast king paused, his gaze focused. It wasn't just him. Everyone else also appeared nostalgic. This statement was something that everyone could empathize with. Which one of them didn't struggle under the seal of the apocalypse? Only escaping the torment of the apocalypse after exchanging bodies with these humans from the tomb of myriad beasts. That feeling was simply unbearable to recall. Gu Qingshan didn't wait for the other party to reply and found a place to sit down. He leaned back, comfortably leaning against the back of the chair, then told Shan Haichi Xia's group, Go and calm the others down. Tell them not to make a fuss over nothing. Just now, the roof had been blown open by his fist, which had drawn the attention of many people in the school. Li Chun Dao and the others were all heading this way. Shan Haichi Xia looked at Gu Qingshan, then at the child in the sky. The other party's several dozen people had already surrounded our group of 8, ready to attack at any moment. Even if they let us leave, wouldn't the shaman be surrounded by them? Shan Haichi Xia resolutely said, We'll stay here and protect. Hurry! Gu Qingshan's tone became heavier. Shan Haiqi Xia met Gu Qingshan's gaze and sensed his determination. Gritting her teeth, she led the others away. The people surrounding them remained where they were without moving, allowing them to leave as they pleased. At this point, the only people left on top of the Black Tower were the several dozen people who infiltrated the tomb of myriad beasts, as well as the child in the sky. Gu Qingshan pointed at the empty chair in front of her and said, "Come and sit, we'll talk slowly." Seeing his behavior, the child said coldly, "Priest, are you so sure that I won't kill you?" Gu Qingshan replied indifferently, "I'm no longer the person I was in the past. If you want to take me down, don't even think about living." The child was about to mock her when Gu Qingshan continued, "The evil spirit's corpse is about to awaken. If we fight to the death here at this time, won't we make the people watching the show laugh their heads off?" The child opened his mouth, but no words of ridicule came out. Gu Qingshan looked at him and said, "Now that I've woken up, don't bully my subordinates anymore. If there's anything, we can discuss it slowly." These 3 sentences started from the top to the bottom. First, he said that he was not afraid of battle. Then, he said that there were people waiting in the dark. Finally, he gave the other party a way out and invited them to come down and talk. In a situation where they couldn't see anything, Gu Qingshan's words had already reached their peak. Unless the other party was determined to fight to the death, they would always choose to come down and talk first. That wasn't all. Gu Qingshan appeared contemplative, then suddenly said, "I actually have some information that I just received. I want to discuss it with you." Information. The child's eyes twitched a bit. At such a crucial moment, the other party actually has some information that they want to discuss. The war shaman is an entity that could stand shoulder to shoulder with me, so he wouldn't lie about something like this. The child stared at Gu Qingshan for a bit, then suddenly smiled and waved his hand. In the sky, several dozen black figures disappeared without a trace. The child flew down and sat across from Gu Qingshan. "What information do you have?" the child asked. Gu Qingshan leaned back on her chair and shrugged. "That will require an equivalent exchange, and I think we should first discuss the matter of the Wraith. That's simple. I want everything that the Wraith has. If there's a way to enter the true Samsara tomb, I'll take it all," the child replied. "What about me?" Gu Qingshan curtly asked. You're obsessed with all secrets. I can consider telling you the secret of the true Samsara tomb after this is done. As for the Samsara delimitation artifacts, don't even think about it. The Samsara delimitation artifacts. What is that? Gu Qingshan was doubtful, but her expression didn't change at all. For this matter, I've made some preparations. I'm guessing that without me, your journey wouldn't have gone so smoothly. What preparations? The child asked. Gu Qingshan clenched her hand into a fist. A faint yellow glow began to radiate from her fist. The child casually glanced at it and was about to say something, but the yellow glow suddenly changed. All the light disappeared, and an aura that made people tremble came from the fist. Although this presence only existed for a split second, the child felt a deep sense of threat. He abruptly stood up and shouted, "What kind of power is this?" Gu Qingshan uttered 2 words, "Null tribulation." The child's expression changed. He stared closely at Gu Qingshan's fist and spoke in a low voice. "That's impossible. This power definitely doesn't come from the Samsara. Your fist technique is ethereal. What kind of new deific authority did you obtain?" Gu Qingshan went silent and didn't say a single word. Such a secret was enough for the other party to not act rashly before they understood everything. Actually, as soon as she awakened her fist technique, Gu Qingshan had already noticed something. Grand Mountain, No Pardon, Myriad Shadows, and Null Tribulation were the 4 thaumaturgies of the 6 Paths' Great Mountain Sword. Divine Mountain's Guardian, Lawbreaker, Living's Wisdom, and Invincible. The Divine Mountain's Guardian can control the Grand Tai Wei Mountain, while the Grand Mountain's Grand Mountain can steal a person's thoughts, making them unable to control their body and mind. Lawbreaker can make the Divine Sword's attacks unaffected by all laws. The corresponding is No Mercy. No Mercy can destroy all techniques, then extend to all living beings. As for Invincible, dash invincible. All laws and powers of the 10 worlds are unable to damage this sword. The corresponding is null tribulation. Ethereal, null tribulation. When your grand mountains, grand mountains, grand mountains, no mercy, and myriad shadows all hit their targets, you can draw upon the remaining power of null tribulation on the Grand Tai Way Mountains fragments to attack your enemies. The power of null tribulation. This is the tribulation that destroyed the Grand Tai Way Mountain and the power of invincible, as well as one of the reasons for the samsara's destruction. The residual power of this power remains on the Grand Tai Way Mountain, recording the samsara's bitter past. This description had once caused even Gu Qing Shan's expression to change. After all, even the Blessed One of the Inner Plane, the Grand Empress of the Pantheon, Renidal was only able to destroy the samsara's fragments. The real, complete 6 paths of reincarnation was not something she could destroy. Then, where did null tribulation come from? The secret of null tribulation lies within this fist technique. Chapter 13:27. The child glanced at Gu Qing Shan's fist and tried asking, after the samsara was broken, none of us could exert our full power, so you wouldn't be able to exert your full power, so it's actually worthless, Gu Qing Shan admitted. You're right, I can't exert that kind of power. He leaned forward and stared straight in the other party's eyes. Whether or not you want to explore the secret behind this power with me is up to you. If you're not interested in this, then leave. The power of null tribulation. It was a power that could shatter the samsara. Where did it come from? Can it be controlled for a long time? These are the deepest secrets of the entire samsara. What kind of deific authority did the war shaman obtain to be able to trigger such power? No one would easily give up in front of such a thing. Please. Gu Qing Shan raised her hand to signal the other party to leave. The child took a deep breath and coldly scoffed. You want to explore the secret behind the samsara's destruction by yourself? You're overestimating yourself. While he was saying that, he still sat there without moving. Gu Qing Shan appeared to be thinking. After a long while, she finally spoke. I have 2 people on my side who have already entered the true samsara tomb. The child's expression abruptly changed and abruptly looked up. That's impossible. There are many apocalypses on the Tomb River. No one can cross the Tomb River alive and reach the true samsara tomb. Gu Qing Shan casually replied, You can choose not to believe me. I don't care about that at all. But I have to say, I will only give you detailed information if you cooperate with me. This was another important bargaining chip. While everyone was still fighting, the war shaman's people had already entered the true samsara tomb. The child stood up and paced back and forth in the room. At this point, only the 2 of them were left in the room, while no one else was allowed to approach this place. It was completely silent. Only the child's footsteps could be heard. He was thinking. At a time like this, Gu Qing Shan didn't say anything. Time slowly passed. All of a sudden, the child turned to Gu Qing Shan and asked, Priest, why are you still gathering the 6 paths reincarnation origin power? Are you ready to fight me at any time? Gu Qing Shan shook her head. I spent a total of 200 million soul points to kill that shaman. The person in front of him was in existence on the same level as the priestess. It was unknown how many years it had been since he had awakened. His strength was far beyond that of the priestess. Only with the 6 paths of reincarnation source power covering his body could he not sense the depth of his own strength. But of course, he couldn't say that to the other party. It's not that I'm going to fight you. It's just that I have to be careful, Gu Qing Shan said. Cautious. The child was about to laugh at him when he heard him continue. I have a premonition that this is going to be very terrifying. No one can say for sure that they will survive. I have to stay in combat mode at all times. The smile on the child's face gradually disappeared. How could an existence as strong as him not know the current situation? Without hesitating for too long, the child finally stopped. Priest, what exactly do you want? He finally asked. This meant that he wanted to cooperate. Gu Qing Shan's expression didn't change at all, as if he was contemplating. Using his meager strength to stop the other party's ambush and encirclement, then slowly convinced them to sit down and slowly negotiate, finally moving towards cooperation. Gu Qingshan had done everything he could, but the more crucial the situation was, the more cautious he was. Recalling the time when he met two of himself in the night cruiser state, Gu Qingshan recalled what one of his selves said. In the end, I found out that the people of the Tomb of Myriad Beasts had only managed to reach the outer islands of the Great Tomb through this river. They had no idea how to enter the depths of the tomb. Gu Qingshan paused briefly, then said, "How about we exchange information first?" "That's fine," the child happily agreed. Exchanging information was something that would benefit both sides, as they could also use this chance to investigate the other party's actual situation. "Then I'll go first," Gu Qingshan thought for a bit, then said, "In the Tomb River in the direction of the Huangquan Tomb, there's an apocalypse outside the reality gate," the child asked. "What kind of apocalypse is it?" Gu Qingshan replied, "It doesn't exist within space-time, manifesting as a skull with long cheeks. Once it sees you, the laws of space and time would detach from the body of any living being, causing them to enter eternal blankness. Unless they die," the child nodded, then said, "An unsolvable apocalypse outside the reality gate. Very well, I'll accept this information." Gu Qingshan turned to the child. The child cleared his throat, then said, "At the depths of the Tomb River, there are a total of 6 tombs: Heaven, Human, Azura, Wraith, Beast King, and Huangquan. The true Samsara tomb is hidden among them, but I don't know which one is hiding in." Gu Qingshan was also satisfied with this information. So she continued, "Within the Tomb River, both time and space are chaotic, so if you go deeper, you'll run into the remains of many void monsters. They still have no way to leave, nor do they have a way to enter the Samsara tomb. While avoiding the various apocalypses, they're also thinking of ways to make sure that anyone who passes through the Tomb River will not end up, well." The child looked at him in surprise. To be able to obtain such information, it seems some of the war shaman subordinates have truly entered the Tomb River. This isn't right. He stood up, walked in front of Gu Qingshan, and looked down at Gu Qingshan. As everyone knows, although we've managed to leave the Great Tomb through the method of substitution, we can't enter the tomb again. Otherwise, the apocalypses that imprisoned us would immediately sense our souls and appear from various locations within the Great Tomb, attempting to take our souls back inside. Then, my question is, Sir War Shaman, how did you manage to send people in? Gu Qingshan immediately replied, "Of course it's to find people who haven't entered the Great Tomb." The child's voice abruptly raised. "That's impossible. The entire Tomb of Myriad Beasts is under our surveillance. No one can bypass us to enter the Great Tomb." He exuded killing intent. "If you're always this impulsive, I won't bother to cooperate with you anymore, because you'll only drag me down." Gu Qingshan ignored him and casually continued, "My people came from a parallel world, natives of other samsara fragments. These were the identities of the other 2 Gu Qingshans. They had indeed entered the Great Tomb." This was true. The child didn't expect to receive such an answer, so he froze. "Gu Qingshan, your vision is too short-sighted, forever focused on a single tomb of myriad beasts." The child's anger completely dissipated, then sighed. "Shaman, I've always been impressed by the depth of your planning and your vision." Gu Qingshan pointed at the chair behind the child and asked, "Will we still exchange information?" Of course. The child sat down again, thought for a bit, then said, "Every once in a while, that wraith's corpse would float along the magma back to the depths of the Tomb River, then float back again. I suspect that the path it took wouldn't be as terrifying as the apocalypse you mentioned, so it should be a relatively safe path. Our preparations are..." "Let's not talk about that wraith for now. What I want to know is, what did you discover about the true Samsara tomb?" "You go first this time." Gu Qingshan cut him off and asked another question instead. The child hesitated a bit, then recalled how impulsively he almost attacked just now, which was a bit unjustifiable. For once, he was willing to compromise. "Very well, I'll tell you. In truth, among the 6 tombs of inheritance, 5 of them are fake, while 1 is real. The real tomb hides a samsara delimitation artifact." "A samsara delimitation artifact? What is it?" Gu Qingshan pursued. "It's a sword." Chapter 1328. A Sword. As Gu Shan mulled over these two words, his gaze became gloomy. The child scowled and asked in surprise, "What's going on with you? Is there something wrong with this information? Why do I feel like you're completely different now?" Gu Shan regained his senses and replied, "It's nothing. I just didn't think that there would be a samsara sword here. Please continue." Seeing that his expression returned to normal, the child continued, "That sword is the divine artifact that keeps the tomb functioning normally. Without it, the apocalypses inside the great tomb would have already escaped. Of course, no one has ever seen that sword before, so this is all just a rumor." After saying so, the child nodded at Gu Shan with his chin. "Now it's your turn." But Gu Shan didn't have any secrets that he could reveal. Facing such an old monster, he didn't have the courage to tell any false information. This was because the other party was already ridiculously strong. Even the slightest mistake would be easily detected by the other party. Seems like I'll have to tell him the real secret, but the entire tomb of myriad beasts is under the other party's control and surveillance, so all secrets have already been thoroughly investigated. Gu Shan was only a newcomer, so he couldn't compare to the other party when it came to the tomb of myriad beasts and the great tomb. What should I tell him now? Gu Shan pondered for a bit, then said, "I'll tell you about a certain person. This person has already entered the great tomb. Be careful if you run into him." "Who?" the child asked. Gu Shan replied. The child was surprised. "You call that a secret? I've received some information, and I know that this human has obtained the twin swords heaven and earth. But as long as you don't get hit by these two swords, there won't be any issues, so as long as you see him and kill him, you'll be safe." "I'm not talking about the twin swords heaven and earth, but something else," Gu Shan mysteriously said. "Could it be that he has other secrets?" the child doubtfully asked. "Yes, he actually came from the future," Gu Shan replied. The child was stunned and didn't react for a moment. The heaven and earth swords might be top-tier soul armaments from the eternal abyss, but they don't have the power to travel through time. Gu Shan was able to defeat the soul shrieker, the magic dragon, and the indestructible giant, but he still managed to steal these two swords as soon as they were completed, so he must have his own secrets in addition. He can travel through time and space and return to the present from the future. It seems that he has a very unusual identity. "That's not right," Gu Shan said. "It's not because of my identity?" the child asked doubtfully. Gu Shan nodded and said sternly, "He has the 3 coins." The child's body trembled, then displayed an expression of disbelief and said, "So he's the seeker of endless secrets, the artifact that distorts history, the key to the past, the fragment of the traveler's artifact. I didn't think he would obtain such an item." Thinking of something, the child scoffed and muttered, "However, there are too many imitations of that item, so I'm guessing that the one he obtained was a fake. The laws of fate, time, and space of the infinite worlds wouldn't easily take out the real thing and give it to a mortal." His expression slowly became relaxed. This time, it was Gu Shan's turn to be stunned. This guy in front of me, this monster of the great tomb, seems to know a few secrets regarding the 3 coins. For a treasure of the level of the coins of time, it's basically impossible to find a single person who knows about its secrets within the infinite worlds. And now that I've met one, how could Gu Shan be willing to let it go? No, according to the information I received, the coin in Gu Shan's hand isn't a fake, it's the real thing, Gu Shan said. The child shook his head and replied, "That's impossible. That item is heavily protected by the 3 great laws of the reality gate. It is the only fragment of the traveler's artifact that has ever appeared in this world. Anyone who possesses it will have to undergo a series of trials. But no one has ever been able to successfully pass through these trials," the child continued with a sly tone. "That's why the coins of time aren't something a mortal like him can touch." He nodded to Gu Shan and gestured. "This secret is very valuable, and I've always been able to sense that you're telling the truth, if you're so straightforward. Then I can tell you an even more important secret." "About what?" Gu Shan asked. The child reached his hand into the void of space and took out a dark purple scale. He lightly tossed the scale into the air without saying anything. The scale hovered in the air, slowly moving towards Gu Shan's direction. "Probing?" Gu Shan's heart started beating faster. He reached out and took the scale, holding it in his hand to examine it. Immediately, a line of glowing text appeared on the war god UI, frowny face mermaid scale from the River of Calamity. This is a type of apocalyptic monster from outside the reality gate. When it dies, its scales would fall off. This monster scale is filled with the presence of the apocalypse. If someone were to hold this monster scale in their mouth, they would be able to remain undetected by any apocalypse for a day. A precious item. Gu Shan glanced through it and asked, "This scale seems to be able to avoid the apocalypse. Where did you get it from?" Saying so, he put the scale away. The child opened his mouth, wanting to ask for the scale back, but was stopped by Gu Shan's next words. "If you and I want to cooperate sincerely, then give me a scale so that I can return to the Great Tomb with you. Isn't that a reasonable thing to do?" Gu Shan smiled and said. The child tried to hold it in, opening his mouth several times but couldn't say anything. Don't be ridiculous. For someone like the shaman, wanting him to spit out anything that goes into his mouth is nothing but a fool's dream. The child spoke with a troubled expression. "This is a good item that I found at the bottom of the Tomb River. As long as I keep this scale in my mouth, I can avoid the apocalypse's pursuit, allowing us to safely travel through the Great Tomb. It really is a good item." Gu Shan nodded. The two of them exchanged glances. The child appeared to be a bit reluctant. Gu Shan, on the other hand, appeared prideful, feeling pleased that he managed to take advantage of this situation. In truth, he was feeling even more cautious. The other party left out a very important point. This thing is actually a consumable that can only be used for a day. TCH. No wonder he didn't make a fuss, nor did he try to take the scale back. So this was a trap specifically prepared for me. If I'm still using this thing after a day, the consequences would be obvious. However, although this guy's calculations are quite good, I'm not the war shaman. Gu Shan's thoughts turned, then stood up and said, "I have nothing else to say to you. The Wraith's corpse is currently mutating. I feel like we can't waste any more time. We need to head there right now to investigate the situation." The child was surprised, then stood up and said, "That's true. Then we'll temporarily ally. Very well. When do we leave?" "Right now." A few minutes later. An underground passage leading to the Great Tomb. Over half of this place was covered in lava. Only a few rocks stood on top of the lava to provide a foothold. Several dozen figures quickly arrived and stood on top of the rocks. Gu Shan and the child stood in the middle like stars around the moon. Gu Shan looked down at the lava below and asked, "Where's the Wraith's corpse?" "I told you, it has a fixed path. It's currently drifting back into the Great Tomb. It'll probably take a while before it reappears," the child replied. As Gu Shan was about to say something, the void of space in front of him moved. A jade tablet was placed in front of him. Gu Shan immediately received it. The 9 Serenity in Incantation Jade Tablet. I didn't think I would be able to be sensed by this tablet, even outside the Great Tomb. "What is this?" the child asked in surprise. "A subordinate's message," Gu Shan casually replied, then scanned the jade tablet with his inner sight. Another him voice resounded. "We discovered something strange." Another him voice resounded. "Indeed, the two of us are currently in the vicinity of the Azura Tomb." Because there are too many apocalypses around, we banded together and used our strongest concealment technique to hide in a secluded place along the banks of the Tomb River. Then we saw, the first him chimed in, "We saw the Wraith's corpse you mentioned. It was swimming around in the water, fighting against the Void Monster's corpses for a while before pretending to be dead and drifting away from the Tomb River. Did you hear that? It's alive. I repeat, it's alive." Gu Shan felt goosebumps all over her body. Alive? Then what exactly is it trying to do by pretending to be a corpse? At this point, the child spoke up. "Look, the Wraith's corpse is coming." Gu Shan abruptly looked up. A black corpse floated along the fiery red lava. It was getting closer and closer. Chapter 1329. This corpse looked a bit strange. Its body was about the size of a courtyard with 3 entrances and 3 exits. Its back was facing upwards while its face was facing downwards, bobbing up and down on top of the lava, slowly drifting towards the group. When they were still several hundred feet away, Gu Qingshan's eyes flickered and suddenly asked, "Why don't I see anyone from the Wraith Realm? And where are the people who wanted to cooperate with them?" The child looked around. Sure enough, the group of people who were at odds with him earlier had disappeared. "Come out," he shouted in a low voice. From the lava, a man whose entire body was glowing red flew out and knelt in front of the child. "Sir, not long after you brought them away, those people stepped on the back of this wraith corpse and followed it into the great tomb." The child asked, "Why are you the only one here?" "You mean none of them were left behind?" "Reporting to my lord, no." The souls of the Wraith Realm's people don't originate from the Great Tomb, so they wouldn't be entangled by the corresponding apocalypse after entering. But what about those people? They were the same as us. Why would they dare to directly enter the Great Tomb? The child shouted. The man covered in lava lowered his head and reported, "Sir, the other people that you arranged for them appear to be loyal to you on the surface, but they had actually sided with them. So they also knew about the scale." Hearing that, the child didn't get angry and only casually asked, "Did they also find the purple scale?" The man shivered and said with a trembling voice, "Sir, the 15 scales that you hid were all taken away by them. I'm only one person, and I'm no match for them. I can only hide here and wait for you to return so that I can inform you." Saying so, he knelt down and kowtowed again and again. "Stand up. This isn't your fault. It was my mistake to have trusted the wrong person," the child dejectedly said. The man was surprised. Why is her so easy to talk to today? But since he managed to escape, he was naturally grateful and didn't have the time to think about anything else. The child appeared doubtful, then turned to Gu Qingshan and asked, "The key right now should be this wraith corpse. Tell me, why did they enter the Great Tomb ahead of time?" Gu Qingshan and the child's eyes met. Gu Qingshan shook her head slowly and said in puzzlement, "I've just woken up not too long ago, so I've never met these people face to face. Even you don't know, let alone me." The Samsara delimitation artifact supported this tomb and ensured that the apocalypses wouldn't be completely released. If they could get into the Great Necropolis and get the 6 Daos delimitation, they would be in control of everything. Although the wraith's corpses were related to many mysteries and secrets, the person who obtained the delimitation artifact would be able to control the apocalypse within the Great Tomb, controlling everyone's life and death. Of course, secrets were important, but his life was more important. After weighing the pros and cons, those people would naturally choose to enter the tomb to search for divine artifacts. Gu Qingshan did not believe that the old monster hiding in the child's body would not know this. However, it was clear that the monster had its own plans, so it put on a confused expression. Thinking back to how it had taken out a scale and handed it to him, it should be Gu Qingshan suddenly sent a telepathic message to Shan Haiqi Xia. "Tell me, how many people from the Wraith Realm and those who sided with them in the tomb?" 14, madam, what's the matter?" Shan Haiqi Xia replied. "It's nothing." Gu Qingshan pondered for a brief moment, then slowly understood. Indeed, the monster must have purposely released this information. It definitely didn't tell them the time limit of the scale's usage. And after those people tried to use the scale, they found that it was indeed able to avoid the apocalypse. Furthermore, according to my deductions, the floating path of the wraith's corpse should be a safe path. There's a path. The mermaid scale would allow my soul to avoid the apocalypses that sealed me away. This was a God-given opportunity. Those people naturally couldn't wait to enter the Great Tomb first, wanting to obtain that divine artifact. There were a total of 14 people from the Wraith Realm, including the monster who had switched bodies, while the child left behind 15 scales. Each person had one, and now they had all entered the Tomb River. In other words, they didn't even consider the issue of numbers. This proved that they didn't know that the mermaid scale in the River of Calamity could only be used for a single day. After a single day, the apocalypse would discover them again. But there were 6 tombs, 5 fake and 1 real, and the Tomb River was filled with apocalypses and monsters. How could they possibly find a real tomb in a single day? Even if they found it, The dangers of the tomb wouldn't be something that could be dealt with in a short amount of time. They're dead. Gu Shan silently glanced at the child. This old monster hiding inside the child body didn't even bother to fight, but instead easily pushed the enemy into a dead end. What a brilliant scheme. After thinking it through, Gu Shan didn't show any emotions or say a single word. After all, the child also gave me a scale. I'm also a target of his scheme. Hearing Gu Shan's words, the child couldn't help but nod, then said, "It seems they gave up on this wraith's corpse, used the people around me to steal the scales I collected, and entered the tomb river first. It's all your fault. The current situation isn't in our favor." Gu Shan grumbled. The child generously admitted his mistake. "This is indeed my fault, but since it's already come to this, we need to quickly think about what to do next." Gu Shan coldly scoffed, but didn't say anything. Seeing how the two big shots didn't get along, everyone went silent. The entire river of lava was silent. Only the wraith's corpse slowly approached. Any sentient entity within the tomb river was not to be trifled with. This wraith's corpse from the previous era was still floating between the tomb river and lava, completely unharmed. Gu Shan looked at the wraith's corpse, thinking that it was still alive. What is it planning now? What a headache. The situation is too complicated, there's too little information, and each monster is ridiculously powerful. Don't even think about solving the situation. It's already good enough to survive. But there's a sword within this great tomb. A sword of the 6 paths of samsara. Gu Shan's thoughts turned, then sighed after a while and said, "Since they've already gone in, we need to quickly chase after them. Otherwise, if they manage to obtain the delimitation artifact, we'll be in trouble," the child said. This wraith's corpse. Gu Shan turned to the wraith's corpse. He calculated the time. It's currently night time, so he can use his Sumeru thaumaturgy. If not, I still have 100 million soul points. The War Guide UI also has quite a bit of soul points hidden away. There are some things that, if you back off right now, you won't be able to do it again. Gu Shan made up her mind and raised her voice. "We'll use it to enter the tomb river. Then we'll see how it goes." The child thought for a bit, then said, "Very well. That's the only thing we can do." Who would have thought that the shaman's suggestion would be exactly what they wanted? Then there's no need to waste any effort. "Let's go." Everyone leapt up and landed on the wraith's back. The lava slowly flowed. The wraith floated along the lava for a while, then entered a deep underground river. The tomb river is at the end. From now on, everyone must prepare for battle at any moment, the child said. Everyone regained their focus. Gu Shan also released his inner sight to pay attention to any movements around them. He held the 9 Serenity incantation jade tablet in his hand and sent his voice. "Gentlemen, I'm currently standing on the wraith's back, following a group of monsters into the tomb river." After saying so, he told them the truth about how the monster used the inheritance to take over his body, then circulated his soul points. As the jade tablet was infused with soul points, it disappeared without a trace. A few moments later, the jade tablet once again appeared in Gu Shan's hand. As he scanned it with his inner sight, another hymn's voice resounded in his mind. "We've known about the inheritance for a long time. Not too long ago, we opened a broken tomb and rescued a guy with a monster's body and a human soul. Unfortunately, he couldn't withstand the destruction of the apocalypse, and his soul quickly dissipated." Another hymn spoke. "Be careful. We just saw an unknown apocalypse appear above the tomb river. It's following the flow of the wraith's corpse. It might run into you." Chapter 1330. Gu Shan went silent. The other me said that it was an unknown apocalypse. This means that they also don't know what it was and only saw it from afar. If it was a normal apocalypse, then there's still hope. But if the real apocalypse outside the reality gate was similar to that long-cheeked skull, then everything would be over. In short, I can't afford to gamble. "Have you tracked those people yet?" Gu Shan asked. The child regretfully replied, "They're very cautious and didn't give me a chance to set up a tracking method. After all, the only outcome for those people was death. so he naturally wouldn't spend any effort to track them. Gu Shan already knew that would be the case, so she was already waiting for him to say something. If we can't find them, and the Great Tomb is too vast, let's split up and notify each other when we find anything, as soon as she said so. While the child was still thinking, lines of glowing text appeared on the war god UI. Frowny face attention. Attention! The illusory fragment of the apocalypse is currently invading your space. This apocalypse is a perception-triggered apocalypse. In other words, as soon as someone notices its existence, that person will be pulled into it. Fortunately, it isn't the real apocalypse outside the reality gate, but only an illusory fragment of the real apocalypse. After a countdown of 10 seconds, all of you will be devoured by the illusory fragment of the apocalypse. Only those who survive until the end will be able to return to reality. 9. Gu Shan's heart skipped a beat. Such an apocalypse actually exists. Just knowing about it would cause one to be caught and devoured by it. The other, Gu Shan, told me that this apocalypse has already arrived. Such a simple sentence was enough to bring about the arrival of the apocalypse. If the war god UI said that, then this apocalypse is unavoidable. He sighed and released his inner sight to observe everyone. This apocalypse is currently invading my space, and it's already too late to hide. Because as long as I give the others a hint to hide, it would be the same as letting them know what's about to happen here. Once they know, they will be pulled into this illusory fragment of the apocalypse. There's nowhere to run. Suddenly, the child's expression changed, and he shouted, "Not good." He was the first to sense the end of the world. On the back of the Wraith's corpse, everyone's expressions changed. What's going on? Where did this apocalypse come from? This is the feeling of doomsday. Yes, but we haven't entered the Tomb River yet. There's nowhere to run now. I can only accept the challenge. Everyone spoke at once and drew their weapons, holding their breaths as they prepared themselves. They could never forget the aura of the apocalypse. Logically speaking, this kind of reaction was differentiated by the degree of strength. The stronger the monster, the more sensitive it would be to the apocalypse, and the earlier it would notice the apocalypse was coming. Gu Shan's inner sight scanned through everyone, then finally focused on Shan Haiqi. At first, Shan Haiqi was a bit confused, but quickly regained her senses. This woman was actually the weakest among them. Gu Shan's mind raced, but she saw old man embracing bones and extinguishing saintly hands standing by her side with respectful expressions. Without much time to think, the countdown on the war god UI had reached 0. A curtain of light flashed. Everyone disappeared from the demon's back. Gu Shan opened his eyes. He found that he was wearing a soldier's uniform, sitting on the cold stairs. His appearance was still that of Li Sanlang. Behind him was a majestic giant gate. A group of soldiers were standing guard together with him in front of the gate. They didn't feel that there was anything wrong with his appearance at all. One of them even patted his shoulder and asked, "Li Sanlang, after the shift is over, how about we go for a drink together?" Gu Shan smiled and replied, "I'll have to think about it first." All of a sudden, following an inexplicable headache, a piece of information appeared in his mind. So this place was a destroyed world. I've become a part of this world, so I must survive until the very last moment of this world's destruction. At that point, if I'm still alive, I'll be able to leave this illusion fragment. This really is a type of apocalypse that's too bizarre. Gu Shan slowly accepted his identity and exhaled, then watched as his breath turned into white mist within the bone-chilling wind. At this point, it was snowing. It was already nighttime. Gu Shan silently called out in his mind, "War God UI." Lines of glowing text appeared. Frowny face. You may spend 100 soul points to examine the current illusion's background. You may spend 200 soul points to examine your current body's condition. The UI has analyzed the current illusion and connected to the corresponding laws of your body. You may spend 500 soul points to examine the corresponding information, Gu Shan said. "That's enough. I'll pay the soul points. Tell me, what's the current situation?" All the glowing text on the war god UI disappeared, replaced by a new notification. Time, previous era. Location, Frost's snow-crowned world destroyed. Event: the fall of the capital city. Within this illusion, you've randomly obtained an identity. King's City Guardian. In 30 minutes, the apocalypse will arrive. Please prepare yourself. Attention! Due to the compatibility of your identity and skills during this apocalypse, you cannot do anything that goes against your identity under the watchful eyes of local living beings. Otherwise, you will be directly thrown into the center of the apocalypse to endure endless slaughter. Secondly, you can only choose a single primary combat ability. Please choose one from the following options: swordsmanship, fist arts, archery, cooking, sacrificial dance. Attention, once you've chosen, you will only be able to use that ability during this illusion. Gu Qingshan hesitated briefly, then said, I choose fist arts indeed. Now that all the monsters have entered this apocalypse illusion, if I suddenly use any other combat ability, wouldn't I draw suspicion? Not to mention, the power of ethereal is unimaginably powerful. Following Gu Qingshan's choice, a pair of thin metal gauntlets appeared on his hands. A line of glowing text appeared: Frowny Face Kingdom's standard gauntlets. Beginner-level equipment. Unique property. Sturdy. Attention! You have 29 minutes to prepare. Gu Qingshan looked up and scanned through the soldiers. He immediately noticed Shan Haiqi Xia. She seemed to be a military officer, wearing a tight, dark-colored military uniform. From his expression, she had only just regained her senses, a bit confused, perhaps even a bit nervous. The apocalypse illusion wouldn't have explained everything in detail like the war god UI did. Most likely, she only knew that it was very dangerous and that she had to survive the apocalypse. All of a sudden, a whisper resounded in his ears. Who are you looking at, brat? Another voice replied. He's looking at the military rose. TSK. What a toad lusting after a swan's flesh. Don't say that. Do you dare to say that you didn't sneak a peek at her? A few soldiers who were familiar with each other laughed. At this point, they had finished their sentry duties for the day and could rest, so they were quite relaxed. Gu Qingshan's gaze fell onto the war god UI. There are 27 minutes left until the apocalypse descends. After a moment of silence, he headed straight for Shan Haiqi Xia. At this point, Shan Haiqi Xia also noticed him and was about to greet him when she heard Gu Qingshan's voice. Make sure you don't get caught. You can't do anything that doesn't match your identity in public. Shan Haiqi Xia froze. Gu Qingshan walked up to her and saluted. Sir, this subordinate Li Qiushan has something to report to you. Shan Haiqi Xia nodded. Very well. Follow me. She led Gu Qingshan through the city gate, all the way to the military station, and entered one of the rooms. The door closed behind them. Shan Haiqi Xia immediately knelt down on one knee. This subordinate greets the shaman. Gu Qingshan didn't answer. Instead, he looked around the room. This was clearly the living quarters of a female military officer. There were some clothes hanging out to dry, and the room was decorated in a feminine style. A bottle of liquor was placed on the table next to the fireplace. Gu Qingshan stepped forward, opened the bottle, and took a sip. It was incredibly fragrant. Gu Qingshan raised the bottle and asked, This place seems to have contained your entire life. Do you have any recollection of it? Without receiving the war shaman's permission, Shan Haiqi Xia still knelt on one knee and spoke with a respectful attitude. I suddenly recalled a few memories. This apocalypse illusion seems to have arranged various identities for each of us. Before this, we had established various relationships in this world, including family, friends, as well as experiences. Gu Qingshan nodded, sat down on a chair, and looked at Shan Haiqi Xia. For a long while, he didn't say anything. Sir, Shan Haiqi Xia looked at him in confusion. I actually felt that you did quite well, so I didn't know how to praise you, Gu Qingshan replied. He glanced at the void of space. There are 21 minutes left before the apocalypse would descend. Shan Haiqi Xia's beautiful face displayed a deep sense of doubt. Sir, I don't understand what you mean, she carefully said. Gu Qingshan also seemed a bit troubled. Suddenly, he reached his hand into the void of space. The jade disc that was tossed into the void of space once again appeared. Gu Qingshan's voice came from the jade disc. So this apocalypse is perception-triggered. We've also entered another Guqin, Shan said. It seems we need to first discuss whether we should meet up or investigate this world on our own. The third me, what do you think? Guqin Shan was a bit surprised. Sure enough, this is a perception-triggered apocalypse illusion. The other two me were clearly in the Azura graveyard, only saw this apocalypse from the shore of the Tomb River, and were devoured just like that. 3 me, this feeling is a bit strange, but also a bit expectant. After all, I'm surrounded by monsters, so I'm lacking in manpower. Except for this woman, no matter how I look at it, she seems to have a little secret. Furthermore, when I used ethereal to scatter the apocalyptic monsters, she immediately returned from the Great Tomb. Before this, her perception towards the apocalypse couldn't compare to any of them. Guqin Shan abruptly clenched her fist and struck from afar. This strike came without any warning. Shan Hai Chi Xia wanted to block it, but it was already too late. This strike was ethereal mountain. In an instant, she froze in place, unable to move at all. Guqin Shan stood up, walked forward, and placed his hand on her smooth forehead. Soul reading activate. With his current Summer Lord realm, activating this type of soul reading technique was almost as easy as flipping his hand. Shan Hai Chi Xia's thoughts were shattered by the Grand Mountain punch, so she couldn't even sense what he was doing. A few moments later, after finishing her investigation, Guqin Shan returned and sat down again. Shan Hai Chi Xia was still stunned. Time slowly passed. 10 breaths worth of time had finally passed. Shan Hai Chi Xia's eyes regained their focus. She no longer knelt on one knee, instead slowly stood up, her expression filled with nervousness and caution. Your Grace, just now. Guqin Shan waved his hand dismissively, then hesitantly said, First of all, I need you to understand something. I'm on your side. Shan Hai Chi Xia looked at him, then suddenly chuckled. What kind of weird things are you saying, Your Grace? It wasn't easy for us to leave the Great Tomb and reincarnate into the Tomb of Myriad Beasts, not to mention that I was originally Your Grace's wife. Guqin Shan sighed, then openly told her, Shan Hai Chi Xia, I know that you used a certain method to kill the monster that tried to replace you. But in truth, I also killed the war shaman. Shan Hai Chi Xia's body trembled, exclaiming in shock, That's impossible. Chapter 1331. Guqin Shan raised her hand, lightly pressing it down, and said, Keep your voice down. After all, this was the military officer's residential area, so it was best not to cause any trouble. Shan Hai Chi Xia understood and lowered her voice, quickly asking, That's impossible. Who exactly are you? But regardless of who you are, you couldn't kill the war shaman. She appeared hesitant, unable to even think of what she should do. I've been seen through. The other party knows what I've done. If the other party was the war shaman and I killed his wife, he would definitely skin me alive, pull out my tendons, torture me, and finally kill me. With the war shaman's strength, I wouldn't have any way to resist. But if he wasn't the war shaman, but a mortal who killed the war shaman, that's even more impossible. Guqin Shan smiled, then asked in return, Didn't you also kill the monster that wanted to replace you? Why can you do it, but I can't? Shan Hai Chi Xia looked at him, then decided to generously admit, I was only able to do so because I was the combined power of every human in the entire Tomb of Myriad Beasts, even using my father's death as the price to obtain a single chance to ambush the invaders. Guqin Shan had already seen the entire process from her memories, so she praised, Sure enough, you've already noticed it. Unfortunately, these monsters were too powerful. Otherwise, you wouldn't have to pay such a heavy price. Several thousand years ago, a few human combatants had noticed the monster's possession, but because they weren't a match for it, they could only silently endure while searching everywhere for a way to deal with the monster. They failed many times. Only this time, by using the causality bond between father and daughter, using the lives and souls of Shan Hai Chi Xia's father, as well as other combatants of the previous generation as the price, did they manage to kill that monster. Shan Hai Chi Xia's expression was extremely solemn as she spoke in a low voice. I'm the only person who managed to kill the possession monster, The fate of all humanity within the tomb of myriad beasts rests on my shoulders. She looked at Guqing Shan, then continued. Please tell me, who exactly are you? And how did you kill that war shaman? Guqing Shan sat still. In the void behind him, two long swords quietly appeared and disappeared in an instant. The twin swords heaven and earth. Seeing these two swords, Shan Haixia was surprised. She revealed a look of reminiscence and murmured, This sword looks very familiar. In a few breaths' time, she recalled that there was once a person who had infiltrated the sect who was holding this long sword in his hand. Shan Haixia calmed herself down and softly asked, Heaven and earth twin swords. You're Guqing Shan? It's me, Guqing Shan answered. Guqing Shan once traveled through time to the age of old, fought against the three gods, and even won against the twin swords heaven and earth. If it was him, he would naturally be able to kill the war priest. But Shan Haixia raised her voice. What did you do to Li Qiu Shan? Did you kill him? Guqing Shan secretly nodded and said with a pleasant expression, Li Qiu Shan has always been me. You transformed into Li Qiu Shan and entered our school of mountains and seas? Yes. Guqing Shan thought for a bit, then explained how she saved young Master Fei Yu from the battlefield, then unexpectedly arrived at the tomb of myriad beasts. Shan Haixia asked with a strange expression. In other words, you originally intended to disguise yourself as a Wraith Realm cultivator and infiltrate the Wraith Realm? Guqing Shan sighed. That's right. Who could have known something like this would happen? I'm also having a headache. Then, what do you plan to do now? Shan Haixia asked. Guqing Shan slowly replied. This great tomb is related to many things. Its secrets are extremely deep, and the Wraith Realm cultivators had also arrived here in order to obtain that delimitation artifact. Naturally, I couldn't just stand by and watch. Furthermore, as I said earlier, I'm on your side. Shan Haixia stared straight into his eyes and said, I've heard that cultivators worship the path of defiance of heaven and earth, stealing the creations of heaven and earth for their own use. Then, in your eyes, those monsters should only be seeking survival. You wouldn't side with us. Guqing Shan couldn't help but chuckle. Perhaps you've heard a lot about cultivators, so you've misunderstood us. I'd like to hear the details, Shan Haixia replied. Guqing Shan relaxed and leaned back on the chair, then said, We cultivators are also normal people, but during the process of our cultivation and breakthrough, the heavens would always send down lightning to strike us, and if the lightning couldn't kill us, they would use other tribulations to test us. We can't just let it strike us to death, so we're willing to resist. That's what you call defiance of heaven. I'm guessing that anyone else would have done the same thing, Shan Haixia asked. You mean you don't pity those monsters? Guqing Shan sighed, then replied, This is the apocalypse era. Everyone has the right to live, but they could have done much better. Shan Haixia was confused, muttering. You mean, Guqing Shan continued, they could have openly negotiated with you and come to an agreement. Shan Haixia sternly shouted, Agreement? We would never willingly give up our bodies to. Guqing Shan waved her hand to cut her off, then said, I'm not asking you to surrender, but rather that they could offer their inheritance and power to help you become stronger, while you would choose a few heinous criminals from all over the world and use them as their bodies. Guqing Shan continued. This way, they would have escaped the seal of the apocalypse. You would have received the inheritance, and at the same time, you would have punished those who had committed heinous crimes. In the long run, social order would have improved, the people would have been happy, humans would have been able to live in harmony with the monsters, working together to resist the apocalypse. But they didn't do such a good thing, instead setting up a scheme to take advantage of your desire to become stronger and use the inheritance to steal your bodies. This is, how should I put it? After a bit of thought, Guqing Shan commented, unreasonable and intolerable. Shan Haixia was completely stunned. Since when has this world ever been reasonable? In this era of the apocalypse, who would be reasonable with you? She had gone through countless trials and tribulations, seen all the dangers of this world, but never did she think that Guqing Shan would say such a thing. But then again, How could the things that this sword cultivator had done be something that a normal person could achieve? Perhaps those with strength would always have a different way of thinking compared to others. If he's willing to help. Shan Hai Chi Xia's thoughts turned, then suddenly asked, Sword Saint Gu, you've killed the war shaman and still haven't left. What else do you intend to do besides dealing with the wraiths? Gu Qingshan replied, I'll just take it one step at a time. Regardless, I won't become your enemy. Shan Hai Chi Xia immediately pursued. So, you're standing on our side? If we fight against the monsters, if I'm defeated by them, will you act for the sake of us humans from the tomb of myriad beasts? Before she finished, she had already knelt down again, this time in front of Gu Qingshan, grabbing one of his hands. I'm the only one who managed to win against the monsters, but I can only protect myself right now. I can't protect the people of the school. I can only watch as Spring Blade and Wang Shun's group, as well as the entire Western Sea Grotto and Tomb of Myriad Beast humanity, step by step, walk into the abyss. They will only have a single fate, that is to be thrown into the apocalypse by the monsters and have their bodies taken over. Shan Hai Chi Xia silently shed tears, sniffled, then continued. I've tried my best, but I'm truly alone. I really can't do it. Gu Qingshan, if you were able to kill the war shaman, you must have some other way to fight against these monsters. I beg you to help me. Her beautiful face displayed a desolate expression of despair, as well as a final hint of hope. She tightly held onto Gu Qingshan's hand, waiting for an answer. Gu Qingshan looked at her, a bit absent-minded, even completely forgetting what he was about to say. This expression, I'm too familiar with it, so familiar that it's carved into my bones. Faintly, that hoarse voice from a few breaths' worth of time seemed to have resurfaced from deep within her memories. Dash who? Who will take this sword? Before the immortal king's death, she displayed an expression of despair. Tears of blood flowed from her eyes as she raised her sword to look around. It wasn't just the immortal king. The cultivators who fought on the battlefield, their former comrades at the very last moment of their lives, they all had the same expression. Over the long years, not only did humanity have to face the invasion of the apocalypse, they also had to face the schemes of various powerful monsters. In the age of old, the Soul Shrieker once manipulated the divine race and desolate monsters to force humanity to forge the twin swords heaven and earth for it. And now, the monsters within the tomb were directly taking over the bodies of humans to avoid the apocalypse. The survival of the human race was not something they needed to consider at all. The history of humanity had always been a sad song filled with blood and tears. When would this situation be changed? How would those people be protected? For some reason, Gu Qingshan recalled what Xie Guhong said to him when he took him as his disciple in the age of old, barren cloud, heavenly palace. A child like you is a rare sight. Today, I shall take you as my disciple. I hope that one day, you will achieve the great Tao and resolve all injustices for our humanity. Recalling that scene, swords silently manifested from the void of space behind Gu Qingshan. Chaoyin, the six paths, great mountain, heaven, earth. For swords silently hovered in the void of space behind him, giving off a woo-woo sound. Gu Qingshan regained her senses and looked at Shan Hai Chi Xia. He looked straight into her eyes and muttered, There are many injustices in this world, and we sword cultivators will resolve them with our swords. Chapter 1332. The room was completely silent. Shan Hai Chi Xia stared closely at Gu Qingshan, as if trying to determine the truth of his words from his expression. Are you really willing to stand on our side? She couldn't help but ask again. That's easy to decide. After all, they almost killed me, Gu Qingshan replied. Shan Hai Chi Xia recalled the hardships she went through when she killed the monster all those years ago and couldn't help but ask. We had planned for many years, even using all sorts of secret techniques to finally kill that monster in one fell swoop. How did you kill the shaman? Gu Qingshan gestured at his chest a few times, then casually replied, I stabbed myself twice, and when I was replaced, it was stabbed to death. Shan Hai Chi Xia was completely stunned. So, that's simple? She reached her hand out to grab Gu Qingshan's clothes. "Boy, what are you doing?" Gu Qingshan covered her clothes with both hands and warned her. Shan Hai Chi Xia replied, "Your sword is the most powerful soul artifact of the abyss. If you really did stab yourself with it, the wound wouldn't have healed so quickly. I need to prove that you're not lying. Only then can I trust you." Gu Qingshan refused and held on her clothes. "Let's be clear, you were the one who asked for my help. Why are you ripping my clothes off now?" Shan Hai Chi Xia insisted. "I'm too afraid of being deceived. Please give me a reason to trust you. As long as you let me rip, I'll listen to you in battle from now on." "You can't." A rip sound could be heard. Gu Qingshan's clothes were ripped open by Shan Hai Chi Xia, revealing the bloodstains and wound on her chest. Shan Hai Chi Xia took out a purple bell, shook it, and chanted, "With the mark of blood, relive the battle." A blood-colored image appeared out of nowhere, replaying the process of how Gu Qingshan took the Earth Sword and the Six Paths Great Mountain Sword to stab herself. The image quickly faded away. After watching it, Shan Hai Chi Xia was still a bit confused and muttered, "It's still bleeding," as if the wound was about to heal. It was ripped open again. She suddenly recalled something. When the apocalyptic monster attacked the school of Shanghai, he was the one who stood up and killed it. At that time, the injuries on his body had yet to heal. Shan Hai Chi Xia bit her lip, then lowered her head. "I'm sorry from now on. I won't doubt you anymore." Gu Qingshan had experienced many things in her life, but this was the first time that a woman tore her clothes. She didn't know what to say. He looked at the girl opposite him. The girl lowered her head, and the corners of her eyes seemed to be moist. "You're the one who tore my clothes, and you're still sad?" He didn't dare to lose his temper, so he waved his hand and put on a new set of clothes. Then, he controlled his tone and said helplessly, "Actually, you know my identity, and I know yours. That's enough. After all, we won't go to the monster and expose each other." Saying so, he slowly changed his appearance and turned back into Li Sanlang. After entering this doomsday illusion, Li Sanlang's age was forcibly increased by a few years, appearing to be around 19 or 20 years old. It was only at this age that one could become a city gate guard. Gu Qingshan recalled something and asked, "If you've killed that monster, how are you going to fight now?" Shan Hai Chi Xia's attitude had completely changed, so she honestly replied, "I've obtained its full inheritance, but I'm still unable to fully exert its power." Just like me, Gu Qingshan nodded. He took out a piece of bone and flipped it in his hand. This was the piece of bone that Zhao Qiong gave him before, which recorded various fist techniques. A line of glowing text appeared on the war god UI, frowny face, to comprehend all fist techniques recorded on this piece of bone. You will need to spend a total of 105,000 soul points. Are you willing to pay? Yes, Gu Qingshan replied. A warm flow emerged from the piece of bone, flowed along his finger, and flowed into his thought sea. Ethereal was a divine skill that required soul points to perform. In the following battles, Gu Qingshan wouldn't be able to use it for everything, so he needed to learn some basic fist techniques. Shan Hai Chi Xia asked, "Gu Qingshan, what should we do now?" Gu Qingshan glanced at the war god UI. A line of blood-red text hovered at the corner of the UI. 7 minutes until the apocalypse descends, the final 7 minutes. But we don't even know what the apocalypse looks like right now. Gu Qingshan stood up and said, "The apocalypse is coming. We need to see what kind of apocalypse it is before we can decide what to do next." Shan Hai Chi Xia thought about it and nodded in agreement. The two of them left the room and followed the residential area's path. It was now deep into the night. A cold gust of wind mixed with snowflakes was blowing against their faces. Other than the officers and guards who were on duty that night, there wasn't a single person on the streets. "Stop!" someone shouted. The two of them turned to see that it was a group of patrolling guards who had turned around the corner of the street. "Officer Shan Hai Chi Xia and Guard Li Qiu Shan, it's already so late. Where are you going?" the leading officer asked in surprise. In this situation, Gu Qingshan wasn't qualified to answer. Shan Hai Chi Xia was a high-ranking officer, so she was the one to decide what to say. "Be careful. Remember, You can't do anything that goes against your status. Gu Qing Shan silently sent her voice. Shan Hai Chi Xia understood. It's already deep into the night in the middle of the cold. What kind of reason would be the most reasonable to explain this? Shan Hai Chi Xia held Gu Qing Shan's hand and said, "You can't even tell? We're in a relationship." The group of guards froze. That's true. Other than people in a relationship, who would come out on such a cold day? The Rose of the Army. Why is she together with this Li Qiu Shan? While everyone was feeling heartbroken, Shan Hai Chi Xia had already pulled Gu Qing Shan away and turned to leave. Where are we going? Shan Hai Chi Xia asked. Gu Qing Shan pondered for a bit. If this apocalypse is called destruction of the capital city, then, we're heading towards the city gate. If the apocalypse erupts inside the city, we'll have enough time to react. Gu Qing Shan said, "All right, conceal our presence. Don't let the other monsters discover us. It's still not time to meet up with them." Got it. The two of them quickly reached the city gate. A new line of glowing text appeared on the war god UI. Frowny face times up. The apocalypse has descended. It has already descended? Where? Gu Qing Shan looked around. In the middle of the snowstorm, other than the large metal city gate, there were only the guards on duty. Suddenly, Gu Qing Shan looked up. A gigantic object appeared in the night sky. It was a ship. It was an ancient wooden ship. Even with Gu Qing Shan's inner sight, she couldn't see through the faintly discernible layer of defense on the ship. Only through the naked eye could she see that the ship seemed to be filled with something. The ship flew through the sky, descending towards the capital city like a meteor. Key, key, key. On top of the clock tower, the sound of an emergency alarm resounded continuously. Shan Hai Chi Xia's expression changed. It's coming towards us. It's fine. It should land several hundred meters away, Gu Qing Shan calmly replied. He fixed the metal gauntlet on his hand for the last time. Shan Hai Chi Xia held a purple bell in her hand and silently waited. Boom! The ship crashed into the road several hundred meters away from the capital city, giving off an earth-shattering sound. A sandstorm kicked up, kicking up a cloud of dust. Why is it a ship? Gu Qing Shan couldn't help but mutter to herself. Shan Hai Chi Xia replied, "Don't be careless. Our Tomb of Myriad Beast has seen many apocalypses. The ones that manifested themselves were usually the most troublesome ones." She pulled on Gu Qing Shan's sleeve and said, "We need to quickly escape." "We can't escape." Gu Qing Shan smiled bitterly. Shan Hai Chi Xia was surprised. Suddenly, a resounding military horn resounded from the city wall. It was a signal to assemble. All officers and soldiers were to stop resting and prepare to receive their orders. Gu Qing Shan and Shan Hai Chi Xia were both restricted by their military identity, so they had to assemble here according to military orders, unable to escape. Once this rule was violated, they would be deemed to have done something unbefitting of their status and be thrown into the apocalypse. A messenger hurriedly ran over, relaying the order to the officers along the way. As soon as he saw Shan Hai Chi Xia, he immediately said, "Vice Captain of the Wizard Corps, please report to HQ right away." Shan Hai Chi Xia glanced at Gu Qing Shan. "Our military identity is most likely our greatest flaw." She sent a telepathic message to Gu Qing Shan. "Military personnel must follow orders. There's no helping it. You can go first. We'll contact you again later." Gu Qing Shan sent her voice. "All right. Take care of yourself." Shan Hai Chi Xia had no choice but to turn around and leave. At this point, the officer in charge of the city gate's defense had also arrived. This officer glanced at Gu Qing Shan, who was still standing there, then said, "Follow me. We need a squad of veterans to investigate what exactly happened." "Yes, sir," Gu Qing Shan replied. He turned to where the airship had crashed. A mass of black fog had risen to the sky, completely enveloping that area, and was even slowly spreading in every direction. The officer walked in front with large strides. Along the way, he picked up the experienced soldiers and formed a combat team. The officer's gaze passed through the faces of the soldiers. "I recall that Li Qiushan and Wang Xiao, you were once scouts. How about this? The two of you will take the lead. We'll follow behind. Everyone advance." Yes, sir. Everyone responded. Gu Qing Shan silently sighed. If I accept orders, I only need to investigate. But if I don't, I'll be thrown into the apocalypse. Let's go investigate. He exchanged glances with another soldier, then quickly ran towards where the airship had crashed. Soon, the thick black fog engulfed the two of them. You're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.